I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We are going to kick things off with our guests. First and foremost, let's go ahead and show the stories that we are going to discuss tonight. It has been crazy in the news. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but we have so much to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are discussing Ro Khanna versus Bill Maher. Ro Khanna is kind of going on this TV tour here. Is he trying to prepare for a presidential run? We're going to go ahead and get into that and some of the criticism that Ro Khanna had about the Democratic Party and in the ways that they need to change. I thought that was pretty interesting. We're also going to discuss Al Sharpton is facing backlash. Yes, he is, ladies and gentlemen, over boycotting Target for DEI. We'll get into all of that, and I'll tell you what I think is the best way to go about it, but people are coming after Al. We're also going to discuss Colombia concedes to Donald Trump. There is something going on. There was a trade war happening between Donald Trump and, of course, Colombia's president. Colombia appears to have given in. We're going to get into all of that. And we also have a bonus story also about Trump. We're going to talk about that freeze that he implemented on federal aid and how that affected Medicaid today. That is a hot story. We're also going to discuss John Fetterman 2028. Is John Fetterman going to run? He is being propped up by corporate media. There's a poll for that question. Make sure you answer that. And last but not least, our special guest tonight is Blakeley. She's on to discuss being silenced. We've talked a lot about censorship on the show, you guys. I'm sure you know. So we're going to go ahead and bring Blakeley in first. So our guest tonight is Blakeley. Blakeley is a content creator. She's gone viral before, whether it's been on X or she's also on Instagram, and she mainly covers a lot of content that deals with Gaza and Israel. And now she is facing censorship as well. Let's go ahead and bring in Blakeley. Blakeley, what's going on? Welcome back. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks so much for coming back on. So, I mean, we've talked about censorship a lot on this show. There's been a number of people that have come on that have talked about what is happening to them. And a lot of it seems to stem around anti-war criticism, or in particular, Israel. Like a lot of people being hit for talking about Israel and Gaza. You announced on X that you have now also faced this type of censorship. I want to get into your story about what happened to you on YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm still dealing with it. And by still, I mean because I continue to try to raise awareness about it like I am right now, because I want them to fix it. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, because the reason why I'm not giving up on it is because it's so unjust. Like, it's so ridiculous. It goes against their own community guidelines, their own standards. And I think it's an important story, not just because of me, but because of what it says about the state of censorship, the state of these platforms, and the control that they have over their users, and the amount of anyone who makes content on any of these platforms. And in this case, we're talking about YouTube. You can have the rug pulled from under you at any time. And it's one thing to have a set way that they claim that their guidelines are enforced. So, you know, from being a creator on here, that there is supposed to be mechanisms of enforcement if something happens. So you just get on one day and all the mechanisms have been bypassed, all of them, to just be like, you're demonetized permanently. So there's no way to even appeal it or redo it. So basically what happened is, I don't have any strikes on my account. Anybody who creates YouTube, you know that the way that the enforcement mechanism works is, first you get a warning. Then after a warning, you get, if you continue to violate the guidelines, you get a strike. With a strike comes some temporary demonetization for that video. And, or if you continue to get strikes, it can happen to your whole channel temporarily, right? So I made a video it's been a little over a week now, talking about the fact that the Israeli regime was not telling the truth when they said that Hamas had been eradicated, because they haven't, and that it wasn't true. And I showed a clip of Antony Blinken saying that it wasn't true, that for every militant that killed, they have been replaced. There have been ones replacing. So I showed that clip. And then, of course, like I do in a lot of my videos, I said free Palestine. And basically, I just go on about my day. Then all of a sudden, I get a notification saying that the video was taken down because I was promoting terrorism. And I was like, okay, so I appeal it. I know they didn't review it because it got rejected within minutes. That's what's happened, before. So then I tried to go to the YouTube partner chat, whatever. And I go there and I'm like, I know you guys didn't review my thing because it went really quickly. And this, by the way, has happened to me before. It happened to me about 6 months ago. This is the second time that I've been targeted by YouTube for the same thing. The first time they also said I was promoting terrorism. And by promoting terrorism, they mean I was talking about the Palestinians and what's happening in Gaza. So I ask them, review it, please, whatever. And they reject it right away. And they say, no, we carefully reviewed it and you were promoting terrorism. So I get an email saying your memberships, like people, how people can become members on YouTube. It said your memberships have been paused, right? Pause means pause. But then when I'm in the chat with them, I go, so I noticed that in the app, like I'm sure you also have the YouTube creator app where you can kind of like see, and it says in there, this is a warning. There will be no action taken on your account, right? So I'm like, okay, it's a warning. And then as I'm talking to them, the person in chat is like, oh, you're demonetized permanently. And I'm like, what? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, because it was a very serious violation. I'm like, no, but it doesn't make any sense because I decided that I didn't look into the actual rules of theirs at first because I was so mad that they took the video down to begin with, that I was very focused on the fact that I didn't violate the guidelines that they said I was, that I thought it was really messed up, that they were claiming that a video, because I do content around the news, that because a video I made about the news and I said free Palestine, because I advocate for free Palestine, and I guess advocating for free Palestine, Palestinian liberation is promoting terrorism. So I'm like, okay, so this doesn't make any sense. So I was upset about the fact that they took it down. I wanted them to put it back. Then as I started thinking about it more, like a day had gone by and my kind of anger had settled a little. And I started looking and I was like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. I started reading into their guidelines, like through their YouTube partner guidelines and stuff. And it said, regardless of what the violation is, if it's a first violation, so it's the first thing they take down, it's a warning. And if it is a warning, it says on their guidelines, as well as in YouTube Studio, it says, we will take no action against your account because a warning is meant to correct, not punish. It's meant to give the creator an opportunity to understand what they did wrong. They sent me this little, like survey that said that I could take this training as a way to understand what not to do again. So I did that. And then this little box showed up that said, oh, the warning, thank you for taking the training. The warning will expire in 90 days. Which again, it also said in the community partner guidelines, if this is a warning, there will be no action taken on your account. So I'm like, and then I decided to go, okay, but what if let's just say it wasn't a warning. Let's just say this was the second time I done it and it was a strike. Then I read, well, what happens when there's a strike? And even when there's a strike, they shouldn't be permanently demonetizing your channel. Even if it was a strike, it should have just been, they take the video down and they demonetize that video. Or if they do a channel demonetization, it's supposed to be for 30 or 90 days by their own guidelines. Their own rules say this. So then I'm like, what about the thing the person told me in the email? They go, oh, no, we were able to demonetize your entire channel because it was a severe violation. So then I looked that up and I said, what do they mean by severe violation? What does it mean if you violate this particular violent criminal organizations, but you only get a warning? They were like, it says in their guidelines, even if you get a warning for the violent criminal organizations, you are still not supposed to have any penalty taken against your account. So they're literally just not doing what they say. They're going against their own guidelines, their own stated rules. And when I questioned that and said, wait a second, this doesn't make sense, they just started ignoring me. So at first they were arguing with me and being like, oh, well, actually we can do this and actually can do that. So when I started giving their own guidelines back to them and being like, really? Because it says on this page of your website, this, it says this on this page, it says this, even if I had violated the guidelines, it's supposed to be a warning. So there's not supposed to be any enforcement action. I took the training, I linked everything in this very long email I did, basically providing all the receipts. And at that point, they just started ignoring me. They just started straight up ignoring, not responding. People were tweeting at them. There were a bunch of content creators and other YouTubers who were tweeting at them on my behalf. And they just were like, they're that gif of the kid where he's like, he just disappears. Like it basically that. It basically is that, just starting to ignore me completely.
Yeah. So I think JB is in the chat. Yeah, he is in the chat. JB said they did the same thing to me. I've been demonetized for over a year now. Yeah. So for people who are not aware, to Blakeley's point, typically if you get a warning, it's a warning. They're not going to demonetize your channel, like that type of thing. They're just like, listen, on the side of caution, we're just letting you know you did something that violates our guidelines, but it's your first offense. So here's the warning. That's what that is. And to Blakeley's point, yeah. So I think you have 90 days or whatever. If you take that training, which I believe is a video or something that you're supposed to watch, and if you do that, then they're like, okay, the warning will be removed within 90 days. And your channel at that point is supposed to go back to normal. But that hasn't been the case with other people that I have spoken to. So similar situation, what happened with the JB and yours as well. Both of you received a warning, but after the warning, there was demonetization. And I think in JB, it happened to him after October 7th. And it's happened to you recently. And the problem that I have with this, and I think a lot of people also may not be aware, but it's not consistent. There are certain people that are hit and there are certain creators that are not hit. For example, when there was a lot of conversation about the pandemic, right? We all knew that we couldn't talk about the jab, right? So we called it the jab and all that kind of thing. However, I would sit there and I would watch other creators talk and not only talk about it, but bring on guests that were alternative experts, and they would talk about it over and over again. And these people were not hit. But it seems like a lot of times they go after the smaller channels. They go for the smaller ones first and they punish them. But meanwhile, a lot of the bigger channels can have these violations and they're not hit. So there's no consistency with it. That video that you're talking about of Antony Blinken, a lot of people played that video. So it's not, there's no consistency. So it seems like there is certain ones that they target, and then there's certain ones that they kind of just leave alone. But to your point, they should follow their own guidelines.
Right. And so I actually clipped, and now I don't remember which ones I clipped, but I actually linked multiple videos from YouTube that were basically the same as mine. like just talking about the same thing as mine. But like I said, at a certain point, I was providing so much evidence that was like literally irrefutable. They just started to ignore me. Because at first they were making excuses. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because I'm like, yeah, but you say that it's a warning. You say you don't do that. And they were like, oh, yeah. But then eventually they just started ignoring. So I still have a screenshot that I took of it. It says on here, on the warning, it says, a warning, your content was removed for violating our community guidelines. You've received a warning. You can take a policy training, which will have this warning removed after 90 days. Then it says, because I took the training, then it says, thank you, expires on April 22nd. Then it says, if this happens again, then if you violate this policy again within that 90 days, then you'll get a strike and you won't be able to do things like upload a post or stream for 1 week. So they are supposed to have a step-by-step process of what happens when something like this happens that is written out. Not you got a warning, so we did a blanket permanent demonetization on your channel for, once again, something that shouldn't even be. So they're already violating their own rules, their own stated guidelines, their own policy, rules, mechanisms of enforcement, steps of enforcement that they say that they have. And it's enraging because not only did they do that, but again, is to your point a second ago, there was nothing wrong with my video. My video did not violate any guidelines. And I guarantee you, if I had been a bigger channel, they wouldn't have done it. I think they do target smaller channels. And mine is so small that I think that they felt like, who cares if we do this to them? As opposed to like other channels that I've seen talking about something similar and they don't do anything. They don't give them a strike. They don't make them take the content down. And, you know, I'm always going to be on the side of let content stay up. Don't take people's content down. I don't think that this should be have this happening to them regardless of who they are. But it's enraging to think about the fact that I believe that this happened to me because I'm really small. I believe it happened because I was criticizing Israel. And I believe it happened. I believe they were waiting to do it because it's the second time they've done it to me. The second time they've done it.
I was going to say, like, to the small channel point, I've noticed this as well. For people who are not aware, so the thing about YouTube is all about, is it advertiser friendly? And JB and I've had this conversation multiple times. That's how YouTube looks at it. So if they feel that the majority of the content is not going to be appealing to advertisers, that means that they may not make as much money. So the channels that have like millions of subscribers, they're less likely, not all, because they did demonetize Candace Owens, but they're less likely to be affected because they make a lot of ad revenue for YouTube. If you have like 1 million subscribers, a lot of people, well, there should be a lot of people are watching you. So that means the more people that watch, the more money, ad revenue that, you know, YouTube gets to make from that. So they come after this, and you're not the only, there's been so many people, I've watched them hit one after another, and it's a lot of smaller channels, and they come after them because they're like, okay, well, you're not producing as much money for us, so we'll come after you. That's what it seems like is happening. Have you had a chance to talk to Kit from Heartlands Media? Because Kit has had a lot of experience dealing with appeals through YouTube, and he's won every one of them.
I don't know who that is. I don't think I've ever spoken to them.
Okay, so Kit, you get a chance, follow Kit Cabello, Heartlands Media on YouTube, on Twitter. Follow him. He's very active on Twitter. Follow him or tag him in your post, because they have had to deal with this over and over time again, but he's won every single appeal. In fact, I know when we were hit over at RBN, he helped us quite a bit because we weren't familiar with that process. But the other thing that happens, which I don't know if everybody knows about this, once they hit you, they continue to come back and they will go through the channel and they will look for other videos. This is what they'll do. I'm trying to tell you guys, they did it to Candace Owens. They did it to those of us at RBN. Like, you got that one video, then they start combing through the channel and see, okay, what else do we have here? Oh, let's go give them a strike for that one and a strike for this one. And the goal for them is, once they give you a strike, is to get you to 3. Because once you get to 3, that's it. Your channel is gone. And I know people that have lost their entire channels, and not just people that talk about politics, but I know a vlogger that lost their entire channel because like they vlog their whole life. And apparently like there's this rule also on YouTube that like if you have kids like in the video, you have to be like, is it kid safe or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
So they got hit with that. And then one of the vlogging videos that they did, it showed them going to get like the jab or whatever. Again, just it's a day in their life. They got hit for that. Like next thing I knew, they were gone. So they don't just come after political commentators, you guys, or people that talk about like foreign policy or anti-war. They come after vloggers too and gamers.
Yes. Now, I thought that Candace Owens' demonetization was temporary. I thought she got like a temporary demonetization.
So from my experience, because I covered that story and what I said, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Candace, but from my experience, everyone I know that received a temporary demonetization was never able to get that monetization back from my experience. Now with JB, from what I remember, after the timeline, he tried to go back to reapply for his, but it wouldn't even let him to select it. It was grayed out. So I don't know what the situation will be with Candace. I mean, she's a big name, but everyone I know that has been hit in that way has never been able to get that monetization back. Now, I think they're being a little bit more strict since October 7th. I think that also has something to do with it. But this is just, it's why have guidelines if you're not going to be consistent? Why have guidelines if you're not going to follow your own rules of your guidelines? Like this reminds me of, always go back to the DNC fraud lawsuit when the judge argued, like basically said that the Democratic Party does not have to follow, like the DNC doesn't have to follow their own charter. Even
yeah. Yeah, I remember that. It's like, why have it then? Then why have it? Like, that's what's so crazy to me. Like that, I'm like, then why even bother having it? Why have all the pages that they have about the way their strikes work and the way their community guidelines work and the way all this works if you're not going to follow it? And it's also like, it's upsetting because it's not fair to just like do that without providing the steps and the enforcement mechanism. But it's also worrying because basically what you're saying, and not just to me, to anybody that makes content on YouTube, is that they're not trustworthy. There is no way they're going to follow their own rules. So they could do it to you. They could do it to Katie. They could do it to anybody because they're showing, even though you guys have larger channels, that they don't follow their own policies. They don't follow their own rules. So it's like, you can't trust what they say because they might just decide one day that they want to nuke someone's entire channel because of whatever they've decided, whether it's, oh, you didn't do something kid friendly, or you talked about, Israel and Gaza. So it's just like, it's just so crazy. And like I said, at a certain point, I feel like they just started ignoring me because I've made like this case multiple times, especially like to them directly, and emailed them because it's just so unfair. And also it's like, it's unfair and messed up for them to do this to small channels too, because how can we ever have the chance to even get to the point of growth if we're being smothered in the crib? You know what I mean? Like, to even get to that point. It would not surprise me if Candace Owens got her monetization back, though, because she's such a large channel that I can't see the for that long.
Yeah, I think Java just said, yes, Candace is back to being monetized. So yeah, I guess she got hers back, but it's but people shouldn't be punished just because it's a smaller channel, because that's like working for a company and the company has said policy, but the people who have, I don't know, been there longer can get by with breaking the rules of the policy, but the person who has only been there for like a year gets fired. I mean, it's just
right. It's not fair. It's not right. It's like, no, Candace Owens, I don't agree. Like I said, I'm always on the side of like, speech should be allowed. People should not be penalized for their opinions unless they're actually like doing something like threatening somebody physically. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't even agree that she should have been demonetized in the first place, but like, it shouldn't be based on, oh, that person's famous. or that
Right.
person has a bigger following, so they shouldn't be demonetized. That's not fair, and it's not right. You can't sit here and be all, we're YouTube and we're going to let people be creators on here unless you're really small and you only have 20,000 subs, and then we're going to nuke your channel and accuse you of promoting terrorism, but not the person who has a really large channel. Like, it's so ridiculous. And there already aren't that many left YouTubers to begin with, okay? There's already such a small amount of us already on YouTube. So it's like, it's just so, and I don't really know what to do at this point, aside from continuing to talk about it, because I just feel like it's so not right. I don't know what your friend did, if he created a whole new channel, or if, like, I don't know, because some people have been like, oh, you should just create a whole new channel. But I'm like, but
she left completely. She was wiped out. And the other thing is, she didn't back up her video. I encourage everybody to back up your videos. So like, all of my content is backed up on external hard drives, but she didn't back up her videos, and she felt like she put a lot of work. I will say, and I think you have some experience with this as well. I've seen you walking down the street, like filming yourself. Vlogging is very, very tiresome, because you are out in public, and then some people may not want you to get them on camera. So then you might have to be, wary of that. Then you have to go back home. You have to edit them, put it all together. If you want to add music, if you don't, it can be very tiresome. And I think for her, she said, I'm not, I can't. And I think it's very sad. And you brought up a really good point. We don't have a lot of us on the left. I mean, the right is huge. There are numerous right content creators. I see them pop up all the time. I saw new ones pop up in January. People who are almost at 1 million subs. Never heard of these people before, ever. And I was like, really?
Yeah, they dominate the space already, and they also have, and I know you know this. They have endless pools of money that the left doesn't have. That doesn't exist on the left. Yeah, first of all, you don't have to have any talent to be a right-wing content creator. You don't, because there's endless money. To me, Chaya Right Chick is the best example of this. Personality of drying fucking pain. No negative charisma. No talent whatsoever. Zero, period, end of story. But she is a content creator now because she attacks people on the left, and now has all these followers and gets retweeted by Elon Musk because she says transphobic shit. It's like, you don't have to be entertaining if you're on the right. You don't have to be interesting, because there is endless wells of dark money on the right that will prop people up. And it doesn't exist on the left, because the left criticizes capital and they criticize capitalism. So there's no leftist communist pot of money sitting around for those people on the left to just like help promote our channel. It's like, remember Ben Shapiro's really untalented sister got like a channel with like 2 million subs on it because he poured a bunch of money into her really, really bad channel? Like, it's like, so it's like,
no, it's 100% true. Like on the left, it's like, put it this way.
Good.
Yeah, a lot of us do critique like capitalism and billionaires. So not many billionaires want to invest, and like those are so there's that. And if they do, they want you to change. They want you to be something else. And some people decided to go along with that. I decided not to. Of course, there are some of us that have remained independent. This is another reason why I think a lot of commentators on the left will take the sponsorships, because we really don't have the funding. If you guys notice, like, we don't have fancy studios. We don't have fancy lighting. Like, I'm sitting here in front of a webcam. Like, I don't have like professional equipment or anything like that. But on the right, like, you'll notice that they have all of this stuff. The money is poured in to make them look like, even if they're, saying they're just independent, it makes it look very, very professional, and they benefit from the YouTube algorithm. This is another thing. Like, they're heavily like pushed out. So they have the money and things like that to help them further along.
It's the same vibe with like Zionism. Like, all of a sudden you saw all these creators, and I saw a few of them on TikTok when they were small, all of a sudden get massive overnight. They were in Tel Aviv all of a sudden doing a tour, and all of a sudden, a bunch of so-called leftists like that hack Brianna Wu was a progressive and then became a lunatic Zionist doing propaganda on behalf of the regime. And now all of a sudden she's got this big YouTube show. Oh, that's interesting. all of this money that is, which is why actually what really makes me want to lose my mind is when people go, oh yeah, the reason why you're advocating for the Palestinians is because of the money and the clout, lol. What money? What clout? You get targeted constantly. I'm attacked constantly if I'm not being demonetized by one of these platforms. I'm getting rape threats in my DMs from Israelis and Zionists. Like, what? I've had brands tell me, oh, that they don't work with people who are anti-Semitic and promoting terror groups. Like, there's no benefit to it. What are you talking about? Like,
no, a lot of those videos are, for people watching, a lot of those videos are demonetized.
Yeah.
If everyone's not aware, a lot of the ones, especially the ones about Israel, actually most of the war ones, a lot of those are demonetized. Like, so when people say, oh, they're just making money off of, no, not really. In fact, those won't be the most profitable videos because of that.
Not even just that you don't make money off of them, but it comes with a constant headache of like, they come with a lot of attack. Like a lot of people will get really mad about it. And it's like, and will call you horrible names. And I've been doxxed twice. Twice I've been doxxed. One time by somebody who actually worked for the Israeli embassy. Insanity. So like the fact that it's all, and the only reason why this is happening to me, I believe, is because I'm on the left. I think that's part of it. And I think that, but mainly it's because I criticize Israel. And right. So it's like, what is this benefit you speak of? And like, I'm like, and also the thing that's crazy too, that makes me so mad about it, to me, it's also about the principle, is that it's not like I made a lot of money on YouTube, you know, because my channel is so small. I don't make like a lot of watch ads or anything like that. Most of the money that I was even making on YouTube, which wasn't that much, was from people signing up to be members to support me or sending me super chats during lives. Like that was mostly what I was making the money off of. And so this idea that like, they're like, oh, well, you know, if we just destroy this person on the left who has this really small channel, well, then that's fine. And it's like, no, it's not fine. It's not fine. It's not okay, especially since the right wing, like we've just been discussing, they already have the money and they already have the institutional advantage and they have the algorithmic advantage, which is why any of the wannabe victim drama queens on the right that talk about being targeted by big tech, it's like, go look at any of the charts, any of the YouTube charts, any of the podcasting charts, Spotify charts. It's all right-wing shows, all of them. Like
yeah.
The top 10.
And it's been that way. It's been that way for a while, from what I've seen, for actually a couple of years. But I even noticed, I remember watching TYT, and I remember, especially during the pandemic, they were talking about, you know, the jab, like, and they weren't, I mean, their videos weren't pulled, but like smaller channels were pulled. Plus, they're a YouTube partner. So that's the other thing. Some people are protected because of that. But I mean, it's like, it's not fair. It really isn't. Like, the rest of us shouldn't have to go to other platforms if we want to have that same discussion. Meanwhile, other creators can have that discussion on here and they don't have to worry about their videos being pulled. But if you're just joining a Blakeley content creator, I think a great content creator has just been demonetized on YouTube after receiving a warning because of criticizing Israel. And it just, to me, I just think I also think, Blakeley, and I don't have proof of this, but if I were to guess, seeing this happen to someone before, it almost sounds like you may have been mass reported.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't be the first time somebody's done like a pile on me. I think that the thing that I want to go after, because that's not going to stop. People are going to still attack me. People are still going to mass report me. They've done it to me on TikTok. They've done it to me on Instagram, you know? So it's like, it's happened before and I know it's going to happen again, which is the reason why it is so important for these platforms to have consistent standards. Because if you know that some ideological view that you hold is going to piss a certain segment of people off, then if these platforms don't have any consistency in their standards, then anyone can do that to anybody. Anybody can do it to anybody.
This is also why, and I've said this before, but again, I mean, we don't have any money, but this is also why I really do believe that someone should develop a platform for just independent independent media. That's not Rumble, because Rumble is more so right independent media. So those of us that are leftists on there, we don't get as much traction. But someone should develop a platform that's just solely independent media, even if it's left independent media. I don't know. They can figure this out on their own, but that is able to rival YouTube, because the problem is all of these other platforms have been created, but they can't rival YouTube. Rockfin can't do it. Rumble can't do it. Odyssey has tried to do this. They can't do it. It has to be something that can rival it. And I have not seen that yet. And the reality is YouTube knows that. And as long as YouTube knows that nobody else is a serious competitor, especially when it comes to media, they're just going to continue doing what they're doing.
Exactly. And that's why when I try to think about things I want to do to take action, because I'm like, I know I'm not going to let this go. I just don't really know what I'm going to do next. But I'm like, this is not right. And I feel like by that they're going to continue to do this so long as all of us accept it. But I feel like there has to be something. There has to be enough of us that this has happened to, that people have happened to, that can actually be like, okay, there has to be something we can do. I don't know what that answer is yet, but I know that there has to be something.
The thing to do is that we really do need our own platform. We really do, because the reality is, as long as we're on someone else's platform, we have to adhere to their guidelines, but they can change the guidelines tomorrow. Like, they can just change their mind whenever they want to, because it's a private company, so they can do that. Also, I think that Google needs to be removed from YouTube. I think we need to break up big tech. I don't see that happening anytime soon, though. But I think we really do need our own platform. The problem that you run into on the left that you don't seem to see as much on the right is that there's so much division, like on the left, where like creators can't stand each other. So we can't even come together to do something like that, because there's so much bickering on the left. Whereas on the right, a lot of those creators, even if they do have differences with each other, it seems like when there's an event where they're all supposed to come together, they all come together. You know what I mean? So I think,
absolutely.
I think that could be the way. But Blakeley, please let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so please follow me on YouTube anyway, because I know that YouTube is done that little handle at I am Blakeley. That's what my handle is on YouTube, as well as TikTok, and on Instagram and Twitter. It is the same thing, except for with the little underscore at the beginning. But I do want people to still follow me on YouTube, because I am going to continue to fight this. I don't know what the answer is yet. I don't have all the answers, but I think that they should, even if I haven't come up with a plan yet, they should be following their own stated guidelines. So I am going to continue to talk about it, and I really appreciate and fight it. And I really appreciate you having me on, because, to talk about this, because I feel like, again, even though I'm mad and it's affecting me right now, this affects everybody, and it can affect anybody. And I think that it's important that left content creators stand up for each other. So I really appreciate you having me on to talk about this.
Anytime. Blakeley, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was Blakeley. Yes, I told you guys it's happening to a lot of people, right? So another one. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, another one. Okay, I'm going to go to some of the comments, and then we're going to get into the other stories tonight. We have quite a bit to discuss. Tonight's topic is useful tools. And I think you'll get that when we get into the stories, because that's what this is about tonight. Useful tools. Let's go ahead to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Miss Delthea is back in the house. Hello, everybody. I need a fifth choice on the poll. Something like A's human politicians have proven inadequate. We should run a grape snow cone instead. I know they only give you 4 choices. I know. I hear you. Dre says Sabby for president 2028. No, thank you. Trust and success. Hello, everybody. Fetterman should go ahead and run as a Republican. I've been hearing a lot of people say that. Thank you, Krista. Hi, Sabby. I know you always talk about how both political parties are bad, but the Republican Party is worse. Harris would have never taken away Medicaid like Trump just tried to do. We're going to get into that Medicaid story. I think both of these parties are bad in different ways, but I think both parties serve the billionaire class. So that's never good for the working class. Beyond Ebony, I can't say anything on Facebook. No, Facebook is horrible. Oh my God. I don't stream to Facebook because Facebook is a horrible, probably one of the worst ones. Maya, Sabby, are you going to request a press pass for the White House? I could, but I don't. They probably wouldn't give me one. Especially after seeing what they did to Sam Husseini and all of them, they probably would not give me one, but I could. Race Pace says, Sabby looks like she's been hitting the gym. Her face looks more slender. Well, thank you, Race Pace. I have been. Thank you. That's good that you can notice a difference. Sometimes we can't with ourselves. Thank you for the super chat, Justin. Sabby, your poll missed an option regarding running Fetterman for president. Yes, he should. It will be another nail in the coffin for the Democratic Party. Interesting, Justin. I know they only give you 4 options. Thank you, Chris Scott. Love you, Sabs. Thanks. Love you. Thank you, Kenman. Bill Maher smells like preparation H. Oh my God. When I was in high school, people said you could use, I don't know, the things they told us when we were in school. My friends and stuff were like, you can take preparation H and use it for like your eyes, like under your eyes or whatever. I don't know. Evelyn says, Sabby, please check out Dialogue Works with the guest Colonel Bard. He has some real insight on the Israeli population. Thanks. Oh, I'll do that. I do like that podcast. And thank you, Michael. Power to the people. Tune. Thank you so much. All right, guys, if you haven't done so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're going to go to the comment on Rumble. Hey. Big props to Big John. Thank you. I never donated on YouTube just in case they get any part of it. Well, thank you for donating on Rumble. Thank you. Based. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we already went over the topics. I do want to shout out patrons for doing the damn thing. We will do call in tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I figured you guys would want to, considering the discussion tonight. It's wild in these streets. All right. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories here. Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also a pretty cool group called Sabbies. At least I think they're pretty cool. I think they are. And of course, there are members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Cassie Radicles. Thank you. I wonder if Cassie Radicles is radical. I know I'm being corny. Corny Sabby. Cassie may not be. Okay. All right. So we have 5 news stories I want to get through tonight. So we do have that one bonus story that I do want to start with, which was breaking news. Crazier things have happened. But something that Donald Trump did had an enormous impact on Medicaid today. On Medicaid, Donald Trump decided to freeze federal aid. Well, it turns out that impacted other things. Now, when I first heard about this, I was like, what about SNAP benefits? I'm thinking with this type of mindset, like people that have SNAP, etc. But let's get into the federal aid freeze, and then we'll talk about what happened with Medicaid. It is crazy out here in these streets, fam. Let's get into it.
This morning, another sweeping action by President Trump as he remakes the federal government in his first full week in office.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Overnight, NBC News learning that the White House has ordered a freeze of federal aid starting at 5 p.m. today.
My administration has been moving with urgency and historic speed to reverse every single disaster of the Biden administration.
The new head of the government's budget office saying in an internal memo obtained by NBC News that the pause extends to, quote, all federal financial assistance and activities affected by President Trump's recent executive orders, including foreign aid, non-governmental organizations, DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. The memo says Social Security and Medicare will not be affected, and neither would payments directly from the government to individuals. But
pause. So notice they said Social Security and Medicare will not be affected. Remember, Medicaid is different than Medicare. right? People that are on Medicaid, in order to qualify for Medicaid, I remember this when I worked in healthcare, in order to qualify for Medicaid, you have to have already exhausted all funds, right? So if you still have, let's say, $50,000 like in your savings account, you probably wouldn't qualify for Medicaid because they'll show, oh, you still have funds, right? So these are people that are in dire situations. They need that healthcare through Medicaid.
Many Americans get federal funds on everything from loans to food aid to farm assistance indirectly, and it's unclear if those programs would be affected. The order says it's targeting the parts of the government that will be changed by President Trump's recent executive actions that could include everything from some efforts to lower prescription drug costs to clean energy jobs and programs. Congressional Democrats overnight saying the president's actions, quote, put the financial security of our families, our national security, and the success of our country at risk. The Trump administration argues the government needs to align with, quote, the will of the American people as expressed through presidential priorities.
We got rid of the woke crap.
It's part of a series of recent actions from President Trump, including executive orders on the military yesterday, focused on rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion, and recognitions of transgender service members. And he said building an Iron Dome-style missile defense system around the country.
We protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves.
Okay, so what happened today because of that? Again, tonight's theme is useful tools, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it appears, folks, this is not good news for Medicaid. I saw this news earlier today and I was like, holy smokes. It first was announced with the state of Illinois. Trump's federal funding freeze to disrupt vast array of programs. Illinois shut out of Medicaid. Oh, God, this was not a goodie. Oh, no. It says here, so let's get into the Medicaid part. Okay. It says that Medicaid, I want to get to this part. Millions in Illinois rely on Medicaid. I'll make this bigger. I like to make it bigger so you guys can read along with me as well. They rely on Medicaid, okay? So it says nearly 4 million lower income Illinoisans, I've never heard them called that, but it's interesting, had their health care covered in 2023 by Medicaid, a system in which the federal government reimburses the state about half of every dollar in medical costs. Roughly about a quarter of the state population is eligible for Medicaid coverage, including many children, pregnant women, and people with disabilities. Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza said the state processed all $518 million in Medicaid bills last week and received its federal match on Monday before Trump administration apparently shut down access to the system. However, I am very concerned about how long this freeze may last. That's coming from Mendoza. In a federal memo, Vaith wrote, the use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and a Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve. Okay, so they're talking about that portion there. It goes on to say, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Rao joined James and the Attorney Generals from California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Rhode Island in vowing to collectively fight this unconstitutional mandate. So they're trying to fight back against this. It says the unconstitutional pause in funding will have a devastating impact on the public safety, prosperity, and quality of life. Democrats and Republicans alike will be negatively impacted by this pause in funding. Now, another thing that I want to bring up here is the impact in Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson goes on to say these unprecedented attempts to defund childcare or to defund infrastructure projects, this is something that is well outside our purview of the executive office. So to make a long story short, apparently the first announcement that I heard came from the state of Illinois. At that point, it seemed like it was just Illinois that was affected by this. Later on, it seemed to affect other states as well. Listen to this. The White House says Medicaid portal will be back online shortly after Trump funding freeze blamed. So it says Medicaid reimbursement portals were down in all 50 states after the Trump administration ordered a freeze on federal grants and loans, said Senator Ron Wyden, who is from Oregon. The shutdown in access to the Medicaid system came a day after the Office of Management and Budget Director Matthew Vaith issued a memo ordering a temporary pause of agency grant loan and other financial assistance programs. The White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, said she expected systems to be back online shortly without any effect on payments. And you can see here's a image here that says Save Medicaid. So I believe that it is back up and running now. I think it was a scary moment there for quite a bit of people. I do know also that a federal judge has just recently, right before I went live on the show, implemented a pause on freezing the federal aid. I believe that pause is supposed to last until next Monday. I don't know what is going to happen after that pause, but yikes, right? So one thing to keep in mind, again, when we talk about being pro-worker, when we talk about supporting the working class, is that this is not something that would support the working class. Whether you agree with Trump on immigration, or let's say you agree with him on some of the other issues. I know some people do agree with him on the economy, although we have not seen the prices go down yet. That hasn't been an executive order yet. You do have to understand that this is not good for the working class, which is what I've tried to say multiple times, that both of these parties support the billionaire class, not the workers. Medicaid reimbursement portals were down Tuesday in every U.S. state after the Trump administration ordered a freeze on federal grants and loans. But the White House later said it expected the systems to be back online shortly without any effect on payments. So if you have Medicaid, just make sure you check on that, right? Right. When they're talking about the payments, just make sure you check that. Right. We're talking about the federal government, and they've been known to screw up paperwork before, whether it's electronic or not. It goes on to say the staff confirmed reports that Medicaid portals were down in all 50 states following last night's federal funding freeze. This is a blatant attempt to rip away health insurance from millions of Americans overnight and will get people killed. So I don't think that was the goal. I don't think the goal was to just take health insurance away from everybody. But I do think that this is something that I don't know who thought this was a good idea. It was not a good idea. And they seriously did not sit down and think about all the ramifications that this could have. Senator Chris Murphy also spoke out and said Connecticut's Medicaid payment system has also turned off. So it was Illinois and then it was Connecticut. Doctors and hospitals can't get paid. Discussions ongoing about whether services can continue. Brian from Hawaii said this is a Trump shutdown. This is a Trump shutdown, except this time it's unlawful. So scary times here, folks. They're saying no payments have been affected. Again, I would double check that if I were you. I know how the government has said things have not been affected before, and they have been. So that's one of the things that did happen. And then there is the purge of the labor board. So there's a couple of things that have been moved around, folks. This one is a really big one. And if you're pro-worker and you're pro-labor, this is a nail in the coffin here. Not good. Trump fires acting labor board chair in legal dubious move. From what I understand, this is not legal. It says that he fired acting chair of the NLRB, Democrat Gwen Wilcox, late Monday night. He also fired the general counsel of the labor board, Jennifer Abruzzo, a strong advocate for unionization. So let's highlight this. If you are pro-union, I mean, the NLRB is good for unions. Good for unions. Don't forget, and I'm waiting to hear to see if Shawn OBrien is going to say something from the Teamsters, because Shawn OBrien spoke at the Republican convention. Now, the Teamsters didn't endorse Kamala or Trump, but Shawn OBrien did speak at the GOP convention. So I wonder if he's going to say something about this, because this does not look good. It says, together, the dismissals signal a broad purge at the nation's labor regulator, which had been an exceptionally strong ally to workers and unions over the past 4 years. Wilcox was the NLRB's first Black woman board member. Here we go with the first Black woman. Watch, people are going to say it was a DEI hire. Watch. How much you bet? Where it stands, under the national labor law, board members can only be fired for neglect of duty or malfeasance. Wilcox had served as acting board chair just for a few days at the end of the Biden administration, and it had been expected she would be replaced and resume her duties as board member. She said she was looking into the possibility for challenging her removal. The White House didn't immediately respond to Axios' request for comment. Wilcox said she just got a letter from the White House and was still processing the news. My term ends in August 2028. I believe that I should be able to be a board member and contribute to this country. The board is now left with just 2 members, one Democratic and one Republican. Not enough to reach any decisions until Trump appoints a new board member. Oh boy. And by the way, the Whole Foods employees in Philadelphia just went on strike. First time Whole Foods goes on strike. So I don't even know if they're going to have any protection. That's the point that I'm bringing up here. The board is now left. Wilcox said that in that letter Trump sent Monday night, he wrote that the NLRB hasn't fulfilled its responsibilities to the American people. And he believes he has the right to remove a board member despite the labor law that says they can only be removed for neglect. So this is Trump going above the law. The big picture. During his campaign, Trump portrayed himself as a fighter for workers. His nomination of Lori Chavez, considered a pro-labor lawmaker as labor secretary, was seen as a signal of a friendlier worker stance. But Chavez seems to be on shaky ground. A number of Republican senators are taking issue with her pro-union stances. NBC News reported on Monday. So here we go. Yes. Deborah said he's overreaching. Yes. Here we go again. Why would you be anti-union? Why would you be against the workers? Like anybody. Again, I don't care what political party you're a part of, but why would you go against the workers? One of the strongest abilities that an employee has is their power to unionize. You take that away, what's left? What's left? I think what we could all start doing again is advocating for people to start worker co-ops. I think that's got to be the lane to go down, because this isn't safe. Trump's dismissals appear to signal that his second administration will position itself similarly to the first, with its thumb firmly on the employer side of the scale. Now, for those of you who doubted me, what did I tell you about billionaire and billionaire influence? Donald Trump is a billionaire. Who do you think he's going to protect? There are very few people that I've met in my life that have been class traders. Very few. So it seems like his first administration, he's going to err on the side of the billionaire class. Like, what do they want? The CEOs, the corporations. Another thing I wanted to add here, we're talking about Abruzzo. Wilcox and Abruzzo have been outstanding public servants who have dedicated their lives to ensuring fair treatment for workers. I can only interpret their discharges as a signal that the NLRB will no longer prioritize that important mission. Workers now have no protection for the right to be in a union. This is not good. Like I said, the employees at Whole Foods in Philly just went on strike, and now they have no protection. So does everybody see now what I've said before about who's looking out for the working class? Yeah, I agree with you, EG. This is the problem of market capitalism. Ding, 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 ding. because people often look out for their class. This is usually how it works, folks. So like people who are rich usually look out for other people who are rich. They look out for their buddies. Billionaires usually look out for other billionaires. So if you have a billionaire that's a politician, he's going to look out for his billionaire buddies. He's going to look out for the corporations. Now, don't get me wrong. We've seen this on both sides. We've seen Republicans and Democrat politicians do the same thing. But without the NLRB, these workers have no protection to unionize. At the end of the day, they're protecting the corporatists. That is why I keep saying we have to leave these parties. All right, guys, let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you. JB, Sabs, this story pissed me off. I get Medicaid and SNAP benefits all because they don't like a woke agenda. They're willing to let people die so a trans person doesn't get health care. It's BS. I'm telling you, man, a lot of people rely on Medicaid. Thank you, Roger. Dems are worse than Republicans because Dems never repeal Republican policy when in power. Except for the Paris Climate Agreement. I think Biden did reverse that, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure he did. Thank you, Hoops, a lot. Do we know if this impacts federal Pell Grants? I do not. I have to look into that. I'm curious about that too. I don't know. Shout out to Pitchforks Are Coming, who's been a member for 25 months. 6th Twitter ban for me back on Sunday. What you have social programs. Social program. I'm not sure what you mean, but yeah. I don't know, man. Let's go to the Rockfin. Thank you for the tip, Roger. My solution would be consumer co-op to YouTube, where instead of relying on ads, content creators pay a monthly subscription service and make up for it with chats. There's a platform that has already tried this, and that's Politics TV, but I've seen platforms try this before and it didn't work out. But NLRB is being taken to SCOTUS by Musk and Bezos to challenge it constitutionally. AI is coming for our jobs being outsourced. When deportation is complete, then they'll turn to prison labor. Sooner or later, everyone will realize worker co-op's the only way. Never forget, what is the number one goal of a corporate entity? To maximize profit. What is their biggest cost? Labor. Therefore, there is always an incentive to get labor costs to zero. You can't really go the route of slavery unless it's imprisonment, but there's only so many people you can put in prison. Other route is to outsource, and AI is the only way to stop it, because worker co-ops is the only way to stop it. Worker co-ops, not the only type of co-op. Yeah, I've been seeing this across the board, you guys. They're trying to find ways to replace us. They're trying to find ways to make labor cheaper, even if that means that we don't have a job. Crazy times. All right, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And if you're just joining, just FYI, we will do call in after the show. So stay tuned for that. Should be a rather fun time. And we're going to go to our next story. This one is a doozy. Oh, don't forget to answer that poll too while you have a chance. Okay. So peep this, fam. It appears that the Democratic Party is trying to see who could be the candidate that would be able to rival a Donald Trump. Corporate media is already making decisions, and they seem to think that John Fetterman is the answer to Donald Trump. I'm not making this up. Why do they think that, right? So there's been a lot of weakness within the Democratic Party, in particular Democrat leadership. You can see this tweet here from Hakeem Jeffries. Presidents come and presidents go. Through it all, God is still on the throne. presidents come and presidents go, through it all, God is still on the throne. What you talking about, Hakeem? What does this even mean, Hakeem? So this is part of the problem that people have with Democrat leadership. This weakness. Oh, well, presidents come, presidents go. I'm not going to fight. God's on the throne. This is part of the problem. So now it appears that corporate media has been pushing this idea of John Fetterman for president. Now, there are a number of issues with John Fetterman, which I will discuss, which I warned people about when he was running for Congress. But don't believe me? CNN, they're one of the ones. It needs to be John Fetterman, they believe.
One person that we were talking about that has also tried to ingratiate themselves with the White House, maybe not ingratiate, but has met with them and certainly made the tributes, is John Fetterman, a Democratic senator from Pennsylvania who Trump very much did not want to win that Senate race. You have some reporting on how people are kind of turning to him, or certain Democrats who maybe feel rudderless. What have you heard?
Yeah, it's just that John Fetterman sort of offers like an authentic type of like bro masculinity that matches what Donald Trump was offering this election cycle. He's also a moderate from a state that the Democrats lost, and he speaks his mind. He speaks like from off the cuff authentically. He sounds like Donald Trump. He's not willing to buck the party and establishment in the same way that Donald Trump was willing to buck the party and the establishment and create the party in his own way. Sure, the base doesn't really love Fetterman a lot, and I think that's why you hear a lot of conspiracies that he's going to be a Republican, but he just like might be the guy that Democrats need right now when they don't have a unified leader who can just speak plainly in Trump's speak against him. He's the kind of guy who would go on Joe Rogan and really hold his own, and the Democrats don't have that person right now.
It's like they want the Democratic Party to continue to lose. It should be John Fetterman because he's authentic and he has a bro-like culture. This is what they're going for now, folks. Let's go with a bro. Someone who's like rough and tough and masculine and bro-like. Nothing really about policy. Don't believe me? There's a whole ad. They have a whole ad now about changing the party. You guys have got to see this. We'll go to the View video first. He was on the View. So you're going to see this. John Fetterman has been making the rounds. He's going on all these different talk shows. He was just at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump, by the way. And now he's on the View. And so they're putting him out there in the spotlight. So corporate media is giving more and more attention to John Fetterman. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to explain to you why. Listen to this here.
There are those on the left who feel like you have made a rightward shift recently, going to Mar-a-Lago, joining Truth Social, your positions on issues like immigration, fracking. What do you say to those who are now, in a sense, questioning your commitment to the Democratic Party?
Oh, well, first, I want to just say I am so sorry for what happened to that officer. I mean, he's had a heart attack. His life, he almost died. I mean, I've had a stroke. Same thing. Absolute empathy and just appalled for what I witnessing what happened on January 6th. And I absolutely would reject pardoning people that were involved on that. And so right word, that's just happened not to be true. I've been on record, too, saying I am not going to become a Republican. You know, although maybe some people might be happy on one side, but I would make a pretty terrible Republican because, you know, pro-choice, really strong immigration, pro-LGBTQ, you know, just pretty like, I don't think I'd be a good fit. So I'm not going to change my party. And if I am going to I'm going to show up. I'll give you the exclusive. I can announce. So I can't keep chasing down every last thing that's online because they're just happen not to be true. And just look at my votes. Look at the things that I haven't changed in a way.
Well, talking about your vote.
Let me pause here for a second. Because yes, Random is correct. Pro-war, 100%. This is someone who is pro-war. This is someone who is very pro-Israel, which I'll get to in a second. Now, John Fetterman, though, is not who he appears to be. Because you see, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sell, look at this guy, John Fetterman. He wears a hoodie. Comes from a blue collar background, which is false. But this is the impression that you would get. He looks like a guy that works with his hands, rough and tough dude, isn't trying to put on a suit, but he put on a suit for Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not saying you got to wear a suit to the View, but he won't put on a suit to go to Congress. But when Netanyahu showed up, he put on a suit. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with all the money he's getting from AIPAC. So they're tricking you. They're trying to trick people. Corporate media too. He's cosplaying. They're trying to convince you that he's this rough and tough dude with the blue collar background, cares about the people, cares about the workers. When in reality, John Fetterman comes from a very privileged upbringing, has a pretty privileged background. Now, you wouldn't guess that. If you see him walking around wearing a hoodie and shorts all the time, you'll probably think, oh, this guy probably doesn't have a lot of money. Wrong. But that's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you to fall for. Then he goes on to The View. And because of the nature of the questions that the hosts on The View ask him, and because they're just not politically astute, they make John Fetterman coming out of this interview looking like the king. Let's continue.
You joined all of your fellow Democrats and 3 Republicans in voting against Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. But you were a yes on Kristi Noem, on Marco Rubio, and you've indicated you'll vote in favor of other Trump picks like Elise Stefanik for UN ambassador. You've also taken meetings with some of the...
Go back to Elise. Of course, he would vote yes on Elise. Of course, he's got thumbs up there standing next to Elise. These are 2 AIPAC puppets, Fetterman and Elise Stefanik. So, of course, he's going to support her. Same with Marco Rubio. The question people need to be asking is, why did Bernie Sanders vote for Marco Rubio? Staunch Zionists, pro-war. They both answer to the same lobby interest group. Of course, he's all in for Elise Stefanik. Don't forget some of the things that John Fetterman said about the pro-Palestinian protesters. Don't forget the fact that I'll show you one of the videos, how he was very happy with what Israel was doing, how he doesn't care about those Palestinian kids that died. I mean, how gruesome can you get? And another thing, this thing here with the hoodie. Let's keep it real, folks. If John Fetterman was a black man in Congress showing up every day wearing a damn hoodie, they would try to do everything that they could to get him out of Congress. They would have lobby interest group out of lobby interest group. We got to get that guy out of here. How dare he show up with just a hoodie on and some shorts and sneakers? He's one of the most privileged people that you'll probably ever see that is a newbie entering Congress. And it's not just by wealth. That's the privilege that John Fetterman has. And it really pisses me off, to be honest with you, because like I said, a black man in Congress could not get away with that shit. And he has the money to have a suit. Let's continue.
You've also taken meetings with some of the most controversial appointees.
Really, all of them. The controversial ones are the non-ones. Yeah.
So the controversial ones are Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. Their hearings are set for later this week. Do you know how you're going to vote yet?
Well, again, it's like we just like all of you are going to watch the hearings and see how things go. And I was committed to having an open dialogue with anyone, and I've played it straight. And that's the same kind of rules that I play, and that's what I extend to them. And I found that to be illuminating, and I was able to develop a more full, informed choice. And that's what I've been doing there. Some were real easy, like Rubio. I mean, he's incredibly qualified, and there's other ones that are going to be controversial, and you're going to see some really controversial ones coming up this week. But now,
he was also really easy to vote for because he's also a part of, that AIPAC crew. So of course they're going to support each other.
I can't say I refuse to even spend some time to just hear them directly from them, just the way I'm doing right now, having a conversation. So that's what I've decided, and I haven't regretted it.
All right. Well, thanks to Senator John Fetterman. Hegseth got in anyway. But you.
So John Fetterman, also, for people who may have forgotten, remember John Fetterman had a stroke not too long ago. I think it was not too long after he entered Congress. He had a stroke. So corporate media and The View's getting in on this too. So you got CNN, you got The View. This is what they do. They're telling you who they want the person to be. They're not letting the voters say, hey, this is the person we want. The media is trying to tell you this is the person that you should want. This is why corporate media can be, an asset, or it can just be a liability, or it can be a disaster. It just depends how it's being used. And now you'll see there's this ad. John Fetterman's in this ad about changing the Democratic Party. We've worked on some of the biggest, this is Fight Agency, worked on some of the biggest, toughest, most innovative races in the country. We're launching Fight to help a new generation of candidates meet the moment. If you want to run a different kind of campaign, join the Fight. Ro Khanna cheered this on, by the way. Watch this.
Be good?
Let's go.
Action.
This is why people hate politics.
Pause. If I remember correctly, we'll go back to John Fetterman here. Hold on.
Be good?
So there's John Fetterman. All right. So they're proposing a number of people here that they think should be used to fight back against Donald Trump, against the Republican Party. And of course, John Fetterman is a part of it. And Ro Khanna was cheering this on Twitter, by the way. But then you have, watch this.
Let's go.
Action.
This is why people hate.
This is John Osborne. Why is John Osborne in this ad? John Osborne ran for Congress. Actually, yeah, he ran for Congress as an independent. He was in Nebraska. He was actually doing really well. It looked like there was a chance there he could win. Why is John Osborne in a Democrat ad for fighting for the future? So is he trying to switch over now? You see what's going on? I listened to multiple interviews with John Osborne that said that both of these parties are a disaster. Now John Osborne's in a Democrat ad.
Politics.
Donald Trump will become the 47th president.
Republicans will pull off a political trifecta, controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House.
How can the left possibly come back from this?
Part of his rise, a creative ad campaign.
Tenacious, focused, unstoppable.
Let me pause that because of the music, but you guys can see what's happening here, right? So they have this guy, they have her. So you see that they're showing so they're trying to show, oh, look, we're with the workers. And there's Bernie Sanders. So you can see this here, taking on the Republicans, how Democrats can win back. You see who they're showing? There's Bernie again, too. So now all of a sudden they're okay with Bernie. Yeah, because he's not running. You see this? So does everybody see the games that they play? So this is who they're trying to push. Now they're trying to push John Fetterman, who just haven't even been there that long, right? So again, I told you they make it seem like he comes from this working class blue collar background, which he does not. I really don't like people cosplaying blue collar, because those of you that grew up in a blue collar family, you know what that life was like. Those of you who grew up lower income, you know what that was like. John Fetterman did not grow up that way, but they're trying to sell that to you. Corporate media is trying to sell that image to you. Look at this. This is back when John Fetterman was speaking to the Kennedy School at Harvard. So for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, this is 2021, public service is personal. Listen. So peep this out, a little bit about Fetterman's background. It says that John Fetterman, at MPP 1999, at that time, he was the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. Listen to this. His parents were just teenagers when they were born, but his father went on to build a successful insurance business. And Fetterman grew up in a comfortable suburban home, played football at Albright College, and then earned his MBA at the University of Connecticut. So, does that sound blue collar to you? No. MBAs are expensive, by the way. Master of Business Administration is very expensive. That is not a cheap program. So there's that. Then to go on, we're going to talk about the fact when he ends up at Harvard. So he talks about personal tragedy. I was getting ready to graduate. My friend was supposed to come over. We were going to go to the gym, never showed up. And then he found out that he was killed in a car crash. Goes on to say here, he said, I thought, how can this coexist with the world I know? How can you have a child who will be an orphan before his 9th birthday? At that point, I had my MBA and was good to go, but it didn't seem right. So I joined AmeriCorps and ultimately ended up at the Kennedy School. John Fetterman went to Harvard. So this is someone walking around in a hoodie, and corporate media is trying to sell it. Oh, he's this bro guy. You know, he's for the worker, blue collar. He's not blue collar. And I don't like when people cosplay that. You know, it reminds me of the wealthy kids that would move to like a lower income neighborhood in New York or in DC and try to pretend like, oh, we're slumming it. And they're not slumming it. They came from wealthy families. That's what that reminds me of. I don't like that. John Fetterman, that's who they're pushing. And then the other problem that you run into with John Fetterman, and a lot of people may not know this or forget about this. I warned people about this when he was running for Congress. There's the issue that John Fetterman might have with black voters. And that goes back to this incident. Even though he says, by the way, during the debate that John Fetterman had with Dr. Oz, he would not apologize for this incident. And I'm talking about this incident right here. This is who they're pushing. This is who CNN is pushing, but they don't tell you about this. Fetterman's past gun incident rattles black Democrats in Pennsylvania Senate race. The cosplaying, right? So John Fetterman said he heard what sounded like gunfire and saw a man running away. So he reacted by getting his kid inside to safety before he called 911. So let's pause there. He called 911. And then what did he proceed to do? What Fetterman did next, however, still haunts him 9 years later as he campaigns for the Democratic nomination for the Senate in Pennsylvania. He chased the man down with a shotgun and detained him until the police arrived. Let me just pull up here. He didn't just detain him. He pointed a gun to that guy's chest. John Fetterman did that after he called 911. This could have easily ended up like a Trayvon Martin situation, where John Fetterman took the matter into his own hands. Now, you tell me something. This is how you know people are handpicked. I knew there was something slimy about him when Hillary Clinton endorsed him. And some leftist commentators were saying John Fetterman is progressive. How the hell are you progressive if you get an endorsement from Hillary Clinton? That should have been a big red flag, ladies and gentlemen. He's another one that was chosen. So again, imagine if John Fetterman was a black guy and he did this and then ran for Congress. Let me tell you what else happened. It goes on to say here, it turned out that the man was jogging and wearing running clothes. Just a guy jogging. According to a police report, the man was unarmed and said the sound of gunfire was actually fireworks, although two witnesses thought they heard shots. So, second of all, there weren't even gunshots. It was fireworks. I'm just sitting up here thinking how a man who was jogging, minding his own business, could have easily just lost his life. that quick. And John Fetterman, because of his privilege, because it easily said, he charged at me. And if the victim is dead, they can't defend themselves. So who do you think the police is going to believe? Very scary here. The man that Fetterman pulled the gun on is black. Fetterman, the mayor of Pittsburgh area borough of Braddock at the time, and now the state lieutenant governor, is white. Fetterman, 52, said he couldn't tell the jogger's race initially because of how he was bundled up in the winter cold. Okay, so let me get this straight. So you couldn't tell the jogger's race. You couldn't tell any of this because it was bundled up, but you felt safe charging at what you could not see really with a gun. Let's go on here. What happened? You're frozen? I'm not frozen on my end. It might just be you. Okay, continuing on. Across the state, Democrats who work with black voters and are neutral in the May 17th primary fault Fetterman's actions and explanations thus far, and they worry that attacks on him over the incident could depress African-American turnout in November in its two biggest urban areas, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, a must for Democrats to carry the Commonwealth. Again, during the debate with Dr. Oz, of course, brought this up. And he said, do you apologize for chasing that jogger down and pointing a gun to his chest? And John Fetterman said, no, I do not. No sympathy, empathy whatsoever. From what I understand, the guy eventually apparently forgave him, but John Fetterman didn't even feel bad about it. And this is who corporate media is pushing. This is who they think should be president. Someone who obviously had no regard or respect for black life, doesn't want to apologize for it, took matters into his own hands after he called 911. Cosplaying Uncle Fester, John Fetterman. Again, I want you to think about his privilege. Then I want you to think about what he said about the damage that Israel has done. He said this on Meet the Press. Listen to this.
This week, as you know, a new front opened in the war in the Middle East, jeopardizing ceasefire talks. Senator Bernie Sanders accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of sabotaging a deal. Take a look at what he said.
Every time a deal appears close, Netanyahu moves the goalposts, introducing new demands and torpedoing the deal. It is clear to me that Netanyahu is prolonging the war in order to cling to power.
Senator, you have stood firmly behind Israel, but do you agree with any part of what your colleague, Senator Sanders, said there?
No, not at all. And I want to be very clear. I thought what Israel chose to do about blowing up the pagers and then walkie-talkies, and then after targeting and eliminating membership and leadership of Hezbollah, I absolutely support that. In fact, if anything, I love it. And Israel demonstrated that they will not allow terrorists not to be held accountable. And I fully support that. And it's not about nothing that has what my colleague has said.
Top stories.
That was John Fetterman being an absolute asshole. And that's how he's been throughout this. Ever since October 7th, he's been very, very nasty and vocal about that. But if some of you would have seen me when he was running for Congress, my channel was a lot smaller then, so I didn't get as much reach. But if you would have seen me back then, you would have known this was coming, because I also covered this story about John Fetterman, not just the one about the jogger. He was warning people hands-on. John Fetterman says he'll lean in on U.S.-Israel relationship as senator. This was a big alarm that I sounded to people. So, of course, Hillary Clinton endorsed him. right? So they already I told you they already have the people. He said, whenever I'm in a situation to be called on to take up the cause of strengthening and enhancing the security of Israel or deepening our relationship between the United States and Israel, I'm going to lean in. The relationship is a special one that needs to be safeguarded, protected, supported, and nurtured through legislation and all available diplomatic efforts in the region. They went on to call him a progressive, and he went on to say multiple times he is not progressive. And they went on and they sold him as that. He's never come out and said that he's not a supporter of Israel, but the perception is that he aligns with the squad more than anything else. That was coming from Democratic activist Brett Goldman. That wasn't really true. Speaking to J.I., however, Fetterman said he's not encountered such concerns during his campaign, noting that he has been very clear about his views on Israel in conversations with a number of advocacy groups. It goes on to say, he said, I would also respectfully say that I am not really a progressive in that sense. Our campaign is based on core democratic values and principles and always has been. And there's no daylight between myself and these kinds of unwavering commitments to Israel's security. So this is what I tried to warn people about John Fetterman. And it wasn't until that debate that he had with Dr. Oz that people started to realize, oh my God, I don't think this guy is progressive. He told you he wasn't. And I sat there and I watched some left commentators mislead their audience and make them believe that John Fetterman was a progressive, when if they would have read the same article that I did or watched any of his interviews when he was questioned about that, they would have seen that he was not. So why would they sell it that way? What you have happening right now, ladies and gents, John Fetterman is a useful tool. He's a useful tool by corporate media, could be a useful tool by the Democratic Party, the establishment, to try to get you to believe that this is someone who may be like you, someone who may come from a working class background or a blue collar background, someone who's not really into establishment or establishment rules and isn't willing to put on a suit for the occasion, someone who is going to stand up for the workers, someone who also is going to protect all different types of rights of those and respect people that are different identity, etc. But that would be wrong. John Fetterman chased down a black jogger and pointed a gun to his chest after he called 911 and refused to apologize for it till this day. John Fetterman made it very clear that he will lean in on Israel regardless of the matter, which is what you see happening now. John Fetterman said on Meet the Press that he was happy that Israel did what they did. He doesn't care about the kids that have died in Gaza. He is a useful tool of AIPAC and of corporate media to try to trick you. Do not let corporate media this time around trick you into believing that someone is a part of the blue collar class that is not. This guy went to Harvard. He has an MBA. He comes from an affluent family. They're trying to sell you a scam. Gotta be careful out there, folks. Gotta be careful. They're pulling out all the stops. You may have seen them do this with other people before. Yeah, Deborah said he's cosplaying. Exactly. He not coming from that background. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Skylar, why is Hakeem posting a copy of a poster hanging in a high school guidance counselor's office? That's what it sounds like too. Oz says Fetterman has the speaking ability of a 10-year-old. And he had a stroke. And this is no shade on people that have had strokes, but I'm just saying this is who they're pushing, right? Sabbatha says exactly. He is a wealthy guy, pretends to be working class. Bingo. Thank you, Trusting Success. Sabby, when you pause the video, Fetterman looked like a bow-legged beanbag. Hilarious. Oh my God, sorry. Thank you, Salt and Pepper. He doesn't look working class. He looks like he stayed up late playing video games and rolled up at a Jack in the Box. Or that could be a look they're going for too. That's a good point, Salt and Pepper. Thank you, Chris C. Fetterman could be the dim piece along with AOC/Newsom in 2028 to rewrite a narrative of working class Americans. We can't and should not fall for it. He isn't the better man. Mm-hmm. Yep. It kind of reminds me of Vanilla Ice. Do you guys remember the story about Vanilla Ice, the rapper? Vanilla Ice, when he was like, popular, like Ice Baby days. The story that he told was that I guess he grew up in like a lower class, like neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. And then when the truth came out, people were like, oh my God, this dude was cosplaying. Like he grew up in a wealthy family. That's what it reminds me of. Thank you, NK. I'm still not convinced he isn't a CIA agent in a fancy mask. Like he never made it out of the stroke. Seen some crazy videos about those masks. Interesting. Thanks, Sparky. Denazify Israel. Thank you for this, Sparky, as well. Anytime someone says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Thank you. Thank you, R. Bailey. When you are so wealthy that politics is more like a hobby than a job, you can get away with wearing a hoodie. Shout out to Blueser, who just gifted 50 Sabby memberships. Give Blueser a big whoop, whoop, whoop in the house. And thank you, Sparky. Love you, Sabby. Thank you. Love you too. Hey, hey, hey. All right. Are we moving to Colombia? Okay, we're going to Colombia. This is really interesting. All right. Smash that like button, guys. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we're getting into another rather interesting story. So these deportations have caused quite a stir. Recently, they caused a stir with the country of Colombia, where Donald Trump has deported Colombian people that were in the U.S. back to Colombia, only to have that flight rejected by Colombia's president. This sparked a sort of trade war between Colombia and the United States, which we do not want to have. At least I don't, and I'll tell you why. Some of the products that we get from Colombia and why we really actually should be nice to Colombia. But the question is, did Colombia's president cave? Because he started to come back to Donald Trump and he said, no, I'm not going to, accept this flight into our country. Donald Trump threatened, sanctions towards him. And then there were words exchanged. But let's see if those words started to hold. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here from News Nation.
Colombian officials will be in Washington, D.C. today after President Trump's threats of a trade war. Up until late yesterday, Colombia's president refused to accept flights of deported migrants from the U.S. And in response, the president threatened emergency tariffs of up to 50%. Colombia's president ended up caving to Trump's demands and even offered up his presidential plane to help bring those migrants back into his country. News Nation's Robert Sherman is following those developments, is live for us there in Washington, D.C. So, Robert, the president says as long as Colombia accepts its end of the deal, he will not impose these additional tariffs.
Tariffs, sorry, not sanctions. So he was going to impose tariffs on Colombia if Colombia would not accept the plane of migrants that's coming back. Now, for whatever reason, Colombia's president decided to cave. He's backing down. Now, he was talking a good game just a day or two ago, and he was saying that no. Go ahead and try it if you want to, but that's only going to backfire on you, which is true. That wouldn't just hurt Colombia. That would also hurt us because of the goods that we receive from Colombia that we cannot produce in a mass quantity here in the United States. So looks like he's backing down now. This is crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, Nicole, and perhaps this is a sign of what's to come under this administration, as the president has long vowed to use tariffs as a negotiating tool in order to broker the kind of deals that he wants, particularly when it comes to the issue of immigration. That playing out here with the country of Colombia after President Trump and Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, went head to head on this one particular issue here, with the Colombians saying that they would deny entry of planes from the U.S. carrying Colombian citizens that were being deported back to their home country. The response from President Trump was this. He called emergency tariffs of 25% that would become 50% in a week, as well as travel bans and visa sanctions on the Colombian government and its supporters. After that threat was made, the White House announcing a deal between the two nations had been struck. A statement coming.
So you can see what the threat was here, right? A travel ban, immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. You can see here in 1 week, the 25% tariffs will be raised to 50%. So obviously increasing there.
From the White House press secretary reads, quote, today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States. And as you pointed out here, Nicole, the diplomatic channels and the conversations between Colombia and the United States still ongoing, with those high-level meetings expected to take place between leaders of both nations. Nicole.
All right, so those meetings happening. Robert, where does this leave us in terms of foreign policy and potential future threats of tariffs?
Well, the big thing here, Nicole, is that you've heard two other countries brought up again and again when it comes to the issue of tariffs and immigration. One is Mexico and the other is Canada. And we've heard these threats for months on end coming from the president, and can tell you that from even public comments made by the leaderships of both countries, be that Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, or Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, they're watching all of this play out very intently. Mm-hmm. The Canadians have said that they're prepared to respond at any means necessary if tariffs are levied against them, though they believe that they're still an adequate trade partner to the U.S., especially on the front of energy and oil. Mexico says that they're prepared to defend their own sovereignty and protect their own self-interest. But again, everyone watching this all play out very carefully. Nicole.
Yeah, so very carefully. Obviously, we do not want to have this type of relationship with Mexico either. We do receive our auto parts from Mexico. I don't think people, and I've said it before, we don't produce much here in this country. And I'm going to show you what we receive from Colombia in case you were not aware. And no, I'm not talking about the Coke. This here, coffee, crude oil, and cut flowers. Here are the Colombian goods you may be paying more for under Trump's tariffs. So this is the kicker here, folks. Okay, let's look into some of the things that we do receive from Colombia. If this were to hold, what items would have been hit? Colombia is not one of the U.S. largest trading partners, but steep tariffs could still impact billions of dollars of economic activity. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative puts total bilateral trade between the U.S. and Colombia at $53.5 billion annually as of 2022. Now, according to this one, petroleum is the largest export of Colombia to the U.S. at roughly $6 billion in 2022. How many of you knew that we receive petroleum from Colombia, right? So see, it's not just the coffee, right? It's not just the coffee. Petroleum, that's a big one. Oil is a two-way trade between the countries, as refined petroleum from the U.S. is the biggest export to Colombia. Here's another one. The second largest export from Colombia was coffee at $1.8 billion. According to the OEC, Colombia accounts for about 20% of coffee shipped to the U.S. and the second largest source of imports after Brazil. Now, that's according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I believe we also get coffee from Africa, different countries in Africa as well. But yeah, I'll get to the coffee part in a minute and explain to you why we can't mass produce that here. And then there's also this issue about how that would affect, your drinks. Tariffs on coffee could squeeze Americans who are already having to pay for their drinks. The price of coffee rose 3.8% in 2024, above the overall rate of inflation. So that's a big one. I mean, do you guys want to pay like $20 for a cup of coffee? I know we complained about the Starbucks prices before, but yeah, those are things to think about, right? Like, I don't even drink coffee. I drink tea from the Homebody Club. No, I drink tea. I haven't had coffee in years, which is a good thing, but coffee is not cheap. And I've watched it increase over the years, and just imagine what would happen with the tariffs, right? So flowers. Cut flowers were the third biggest import from Colombia at 1.6 billion. Other items being regularly shipped to the U.S. from Colombia include gold and aluminum structures. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Okay, no big deal. I'm just not going to buy flowers. There's a lot of florist business in the United States. I mean, here in Boston alone, there's florist shops everywhere. I don't think you can walk through Boston proper and not run into some type of florist shop or flowers sold in a convenience store. Like, that's a big business. You're talking about weddings, birthdays, Valentine's Day, etc. So believe it or not, flowers. So that's another thing, guys. So the point that I'm trying to make, folks, is that we kind of need Colombia. I say this about China too. I don't know why people keep like, let's go after China and attack China. No, we kind of need these countries, okay? Because we don't produce a lot here in the United States. And hey, listen, I am all for us producing more in the US. I just don't think that's going to happen the way that it used to. Part of that is because of capitalism. And, you know, CEOs found ways to make labor cheaper. And by doing so, they are able to get parts and products from other countries for a cheaper price instead of producing it here. But the $1 million question, why are we not growing our own coffee? Now, it was actually recommended on Fox News. Check this out. This is funny.
Coffee from Colombia. We actually make our own coffee here too in Kona, in Hawaii, right? There's multiple things coming out of our neighbors' countries that aren't sort of reducible to one thing. But I think that's part of what the media has been articulating this entire time, arguing that the GOP reduces humans to an identity, but really it's them shoving these countries into boxes. President Trump sees them as partners.
Yeah, what's interesting is Trump's trying to bring about a world where he'll drop the rate for companies that actually come here and make some of that stuff to 15% tax rate. So we might not have to miss coffee or whatever they think they're going to miss that we can clearly make our own, but maybe not as much of, because maybe some of those countries will come here and they'll package their stuff or distribute it from here. He's trying
coffee from.
No, I see. They have no idea what they're talking about. First of all, yes, we make coffee in Hawaii, California, and Puerto Rico. And there's a reason why it isn't mass produced here. Let's get into this part here, right? So we can still make coffee in those places, but we can't mass produce it. And a lot of people drink coffee in this country, okay? I know. I see the line. There's a Starbucks inside one of the grocery stores that I go to, and I see the line, and I'm like, people line up for the coffee, you know, gotta have it. I used to be like that too. Gotta have my coffee. So I'm so glad I kicked that habit. But we can't produce it on a mass scale. And here's the reason why. Does coffee grow in the United States? So yeah, again, like I said, it grows in California, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, but it's limited. And the reason why it's limited is because of this. Though most of the U.S. lies outside of the coffee belt, Puerto Rico was once a high volume producer of coffee, and Hawaii too has made a name for itself in coffee production, namely the world famous Kona coffee. California is a newcomer to the game and is currently not producing enough mainland grown coffee to be affordable for most. So if we were to not rely on coffee from Colombia, and we only relied on the production here in the United States, which is Hawaii, California, Puerto Rico, that would mean that coffee would be very expensive. Some of you would say it probably already is expensive, depending on where you're getting from, but the price would increase more because we can't mass produce it. Why can't we mass produce it? Because we don't have the climate for it. There's a reason why it's heavily produced in Colombia. And even with the states that I mentioned, notice the climate that those states tend to have. California, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, right? Or territory, Puerto Rico. So that's why we don't mass produce it here. We just don't have the climate for it. So we kind of do need Colombia for some of these things, you know what I mean? And we also get coffee from Africa as well. So people do have to understand that when they make that statement on Fox News, like, oh, let's just have our own coffee, da da da. No, like, this is the thing that pisses me off about corporate media. They say things, but they don't go into the details to explain to people why we can't do these things and why we don't do them now. So when you make that statement and you say, why can't we just produce it here? That's giving Americans a false perception that we can mass produce it here and we can't. And then you're not telling the viewers that if we would only rely on the production of coffee here, then the price for coffee would greatly increase, right? So that's one of the bad things there about, again, corporate media, not giving the full context. And I think that's important for people to know. But it does appear that Colombia has decided to back away from all of this. Now, in this whole deportation news of things, there are people that are calling out to Donald Trump, asking for help. This guy here is one of them. I thought you guys would find this interesting. Florida man who voted for Trump wants to work something out with Donald Trump. This is interesting. So listen to this one.
They turned off the cameras, excuse my language, and then they took my wife.
This man who wished not to be identified says his wife is from Venezuela and has lived in the United States for a few years. She was one of 3 people taken from this home. I'm told the 2 others were men who worked in construction. You see them here. This video, only 1 minute and 52 seconds long, we do not see his wife being removed from the home. But this is a picture of her that he keeps in his wallet. Her name is Vianis Ramirez, and he says she was in the process of becoming a United States citizen.
She already had a court date. She was good. Everything's good. He just came in and snatched her.
These are pictures from the Department of Homeland Security detaining other undocumented men and women in Broward County.
It's despicable what they're doing right now. It's very embarrassing.
President Donald Trump arrived at his Trump National Golf Resort in Doral Saturday, set to host GOP leaders for a conference. This man hopes this message makes it to him.
So this is what's interesting about this situation. She was already, I guess she had already started the citizenship process. That's what it sounds like. But she was also deported.
I tried to talk to you, man. Yo, please, man, let's work something out. So you, man, let me keep my wife here in the United States, man. She deserves to be here, man.
ICE reports nearly 1,000 raids in the country on Sunday alone, which is up from just under 300 on Saturday. Here at the detention center in Miramar, things have been quiet for several hours, but we will continue to monitor this situation and bring you the developing news on raids in South Florida as they happen.
Wow, really interesting. I guess maybe he didn't believe when he voted for Trump, maybe he didn't believe that his wife would be affected because she was already in the citizenship process. I don't know, but I have to add this as well because I feel like a lot of people are leaving this out. Eric, we can go to part 2. I think a lot of people are leaving this part out, which is that I think that people need to realize, I'll have to talk about this more in detail on Thursday because we won't have time to get through tonight, but people need to realize the wording about U.S. citizenship and who is considered a citizen and what is considered legal, or it's tricky because the DOJ is now trying to make the claim that Native Americans may not fall under the 14th Amendment either, because they respond to the tribes first, not the jurisdiction of the United States. This is getting messy. Getting messy, folks. So I want to read a little bit more about that. So I'll go into that more on Thursday. Yeah. Angel said, saw that, crazy. Yeah. That was, I was looking at that last night and I was like, what? I was like, I need to read into this more. Audible says, read the 14th Amendment. Yeah, I might have to read that on the show. Jasmine, we can talk about it on call-in. Jasmine says they were here first. I'm telling you what it says, what the text says. So I don't think that'll pass, but you got to read the wording. Let's get the comment on Rumble. All right. Thank you, Snorky. I grew coffee in my basement in Iowa for 5 years until I had a reaction to the jab. Coffee is easy to grow in all these buildings that used to be retail cheaper than shipping from Colombia. We can produce it here cheaply if we don't shun corporate media talking about controlled environmental agriculture. That'll be the challenge though, Snorky. I would love to do a show on CEA coffee. There you go, folks. All right, let's go to the comments here. Shout out to Miranda Rios for becoming a new member. Give Miranda a big whoop whoop. Yeah. Lawrence, what's the difference between a member and a subscriber? A subscriber is someone who subscribes to the channel. A member is someone who chooses to select join on the channel to be a member, and they get little perks with that. Like, I think there's little emojis you guys can use like as a member. I should probably add something else, another perk to that. I just haven't figured out what I want to add. If you guys have ideas, let me know. You can tell me on call-in. Shout out to Panette Green for the super sticker. Aunt Shawnee said Colombia caved real fast because the Colombian government needs those millions of American taxpayer dollars in their country. Ooh, thank you, Sparky. Free Greenland from Danish tyranny and brutal oppression. We don't want their natural resources. We only wish to bring them freedom and democracy. Byron says Colombia should go BRICS. Everyone should go BRICS. Don't tempt them. Hey, La Senora. Sabby, my name is pronounced Chamonique. Hello and welcome. Thank you, Sparky. Free Canada from the Castro regime. Marion says, good show. I did not know about Fetterman. Yeah. Thank you, Eskimo. In 1924, Native Americans were granted full U.S. citizenship through the passage of the Indian Citizenship Act, also known as the Snyder Act. Yeah, I saw that too. I'll talk about it on Thursday, guys. I'll show you the wording that they're pointing to. Shout out to Mark Pugsley for becoming a Sabby member. Give Mark a big whoop whoop. And thank you, Sparky. Native Americans were considered separate from the U.S. until the late 1800s. In fact, they still owned slaves in 1866 because they weren't part of the U.S. I see someone's been studying their history. And thank you, Benny. Looked up all the potential candidates for 2028, establishment Democrats and MAGA Republicans as the eye can see, and not a single one condemns the genocide. Don't bother voting for these Zionist shills, people. I won't. Yeah, they all have something in common, don't they? Thank you, China. I hate when these factories don't pay a living wage. It's giving slave labor. People would take those jobs if they paid a living wage. Yeah, like back in the day, my grandparents worked in factories. Yep, they moved from the Carolinas up to Baltimore and they worked in the factories. That's what my grandparents did. Thank you, Chris. Colombia is also an exporter of limes. Ooh, and we use limes in many of our drinks, our recipes. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. Sabby, I got distracted. Did you cover the federal judge putting a temporary block on Trump stopping funding for Medicaid? I already mentioned that. Making things in America so we don't have to rely on other countries does not extend to food and beverage climate. Climate is someone should tell people that who said that craziness. Oh boy. All right. Now we're going to get into some crazy. Again, the theme of tonight's show is useful tools. So we got to talk about Al Sharpton because Al Sharpton, MSNBC host, was a civil rights activist, was also an informant for the FBI. He was a Fed, many other things. Al Sharpton is receiving backlash all over the Target boycott and the escorting of people to Costco. And I'm going to tell you how I think this should have been handled. Let's first get into the boycott. So you guys know that Donald Trump revoked all the DEI stuff, right? So the federal DEI, et cetera. So Target announced that they are ending their DEI initiatives, right? Because of Trump's order on diversity programs. So there's Target. When I was like in college, we used to call it Target. I don't know where we got that from, but that's what we used to call it. So it's not just Target, by the way. It says Target is ending its diversity, equity, and inclusion program this year. The retailer said on Friday, the largest U.S. corporation to step away from such policies, and they're facing a lot of scrutiny. It says over the last year, other companies, Walmart, Amazon, and Meta have rolled back their DEI policies as well. So it says here, for Target with an inclusive audience, this is their version of brand suicide. Target also said it is ending its REACH initiatives this year, under which it had pledged to invest $2 billion with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2025. So that initiative included plans to add 500 Black-owned brands and funding program from its house media company, Roundel, to increase exposure of diverse-owned brands through paid media. So the big thing that people are responding to is, of course, they're ending this investment that they had for the Black-owned businesses. So that's where the boycott comes from. So there is a move for people to boycott Target. Now, one of the individuals who has a Black-owned business on the shelves at Target is advising people not to do that. I want you to hear what Tasha Brown, what she had to say. And she's getting a lot of criticism for her response to this. I don't like what she said either, but listen to what Tasha Brown said and I'll chime in here.
I am in business in multiple ways, with Target, with Walmart, and Amazon, right? I sell Donna's Recipe, my hair care products, right, are on Amazon. They're also in Target. And of course, I have a huge partnership with Target. I sell my seasonings at Walmart. I do business all over.
Tabitha, yes, I'm sorry. I think I said Tasha, Tabitha. All right.
Just like many other people. And what I can tell you is, if we all decide to boycott and be like, no, we're not spending no money at these organizations. Listen, I get it. And if that's how you feel, honey, I 1000% get it. But so many of us will be affected and our sales will drop. Our business will be hurt. And if any of you know business, it doesn't just happen overnight where you can just go take all your stuff and pull it off the shelves. There's a process. And then you got to, like, where you going to put it? You got to have a place to store it. That's money, right? You got to have another place to sell it, which is almost impossible sometimes. And even if you sell online, it's a process when it comes to business. And everyone does not have the funds or the means or the availability, the space to house their own products.
All right, honey bun. So let's pause here. So first of all, Tabitha, you, I think more so than others who are small business owners, you probably have more resources than the local mom and pop black shop in the neighborhood, right? So Tabitha decides to make this about herself. I'm worried about my bottom line. Don't boycott Target because I may not make as much money with my items when Tabitha can sell those items elsewhere. I mean, you guys are all familiar. If you watch YouTube commentators, you know we all have, most of us, I think, have a store. Don't we sell merch? I don't house the merch. I don't have t-shirts and mugs around me. I don't keep them here. I sell my merch on Bonfire, which they're supposed to be environmentally friendly. But I sell my merch there. They house it and they push it out. Do they get a percentage? Yes. But Target gets a percentage from her right now too. I ain't got time for this, boo. Look, this is the thing. She's trying to make this about her money and her bottom line. Like, who does this? That's like, I could imagine. Think about all the boycotts and the sit-ins that happened during the civil rights movement. Imagine going to a freaking diner counter in Greensboro, North Carolina for the sit-in, sitting at the counter, and you're not going to move, or you're not going to buy anything. And you see somebody whip up some pancakes and say, I know we're doing the sit-in, but damn, those pancakes look good. Can you pass me a pancake? She wants you to boycott Target, but she still wants you to go to Target to buy her stuff, knowing that Target still gets a percentage of it. So you're not boycotting Target. That's not a boycott. That's a thought. That's what that is. That doesn't make any sense. She goes on.
Right. But the thing that concerns me the most, and I want you to hear me and hear me well, if we all decide to stop supporting said businesses and say, I can't buy nothing from there. Even the businesses who were affected by the DEI ban, right? What that does is you take all our sales and they dwindle down. And then those companies get to say, oh, your products are not performing. And they can remove them from the shelves and then put their preferred businesses on the shelves. And then what happens to all the businesses who've worked so hard to get where they are? Then what happens, right? Now, I know that something that could solve it is ownership of these big corporations, right? It's a long way to go there. There are amazing companies like the Village Market in Atlanta, right, who support small businesses, and you can go in there and there's some amazing things that you can buy, but it's one store and it's very small. We're talking about mass market. You can't build that overnight.
No, but you can sell your items online. Like I said, most of us that have YouTube political shows have merch, and we sell our merch on another platform. And yes, they do get a percentage, but Target is getting a percentage from her anyway. Like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this. This is giving me like sellout vibes, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. That's scab behavior. It crossed the picket line, but only cross it from me. Come over there and cross the picket line and come over to me. So Tabitha is trying to look out for Tabitha. Way to try to be a barrier against the boycott movement, right? Whether you agree with what Target is doing or not, like, I've participated in boycotts. Hell, I haven't shopped at Target in a long time. I'm trying to remember the last time I went to Target. I think Target's overpriced any damn way. That's part of the reason why I stopped shopping there, but I haven't been there in a long time, right? If I want paper towels, I can get them at the grocery store. In fact, the grocery store down the street from me, the paper towels are cheaper there than they are at Target. So I don't really need you, Tajay. I don't really need you. Okay. Now Al Sharpton comes in because he had an idea. Al Sharpton has this idea of, you know what? Yep, let's boycott Target. Okay. But where does he take the people? Let's chime in here. And then you'll see this activity take place, actually.
Organized, because we must remember, we only got those rights won in the first place because we fought, which is why we've been methodical and strategic. But we intend to boycott some of these companies, but we're going to do it strategically. And today, those that are with us, I took over 100 people from our regular Saturday National Action Network rally, and we went shopping in Costco's because they say, no, we're not going to be with the president. We're going to keep DEI. So we need to reward and be with our friends and our enemies. You don't want diversity in the office space, then you shouldn't have diversity in your consumer base.
So Al Sharpton decided to take the people to Costco. Now, I know what some people are going to say. Well, maybe that's the only other business in the community that he could have taken them to. Okay, whatever. Here's my thing, fam. If you're going to boycott Target and you want people to shop elsewhere, why aren't you redirecting all of those Black people to Black-owned businesses? A lot of Black-owned businesses are online. So even if it's not in the community, it's accessible online. Come on, everybody's online nowadays. Give me a break. If you can buy from Amazon, you can go onto these Black-owned businesses that have websites, go onto their websites, and you can buy from them. And a lot of people are buying from Amazon. So he decides to take them to Costco, and you have to see this in action. And then I'm going to tell you why Costco was not a good idea. Shout out to Olita Scooter Caster. Rev Al Sharpton and 100 supporters marched through Costco for this. So here's Al Sharpton. And let me bring everybody over to Costco. Instead of bringing them to other Black-owned businesses, let me bring them to a business that I feel said they're going to keep their DEI initiatives. But who owns the business? You see what I'm saying? So watch this.
They're on your side.
See, this is why I'm really upset when I saw this video, because the people in the video probably don't know. And this is where someone like Al Sharpton, with the platform that he has, instead of leading people in the right direction and getting them to turn the tide, he takes them to another businesses that's white owned. What if Costco changes their policy tomorrow? Then what? Right? So he has them come in here and they believe he's told them like, hey, they like us. They want us here. Do they? Does Costco really? How much does Costco really care about the Black community? We'll see when we take a look at Costco's numbers.
Shopping for justice.
And everybody's smiling and they're all being misled. And this just pisses me off. And it makes me like, we really have to have these conversations within the Black community. We have to have these conversations about, it's not even just about owning the product and saying, I'm starting a business and this is my product. Remember what I told you last year? If you don't own the building, if you don't own the property, if you don't own the warehouse space where the goods are coming from, you don't really own it. Your stuff still belongs to somebody else. And the moment you piss them off or they change their mind, they can go in a different direction. And now you ain't got no place to have your products. So we have to have a strong conversation about this within the Black community. I really don't like this. Al Sharpton pissed me off and apparently pissed off other people too. Now, this is what I said here. Why not support Black-owned businesses instead? There's only one Black member on Costco's board of directors. There are 4 white women on the board. Their DEI went to white women, just like many other businesses. So this is what the message that I'm trying to get across to people. Wow, that actually got a lot of likes, 1.9K likes. Anyway, the message that I'm trying to get across, because if you look at Costco, we'll go to Nina first. Nina, I feel, did it the right way. Nina Turner said, we can either send Target a clear message now or be quiet and allow corporations to use allyship when it's convenient. My organization, Strike for All, is calling on working class solidarity, boycott Target, and let's build a movement that stands at the intersection of race and class. I'm going to highlight this word solidarity because there is none. Even over here, sometimes on the left, because I'm sitting back and I'm waiting to see, and I've been looking, I'm waiting to see how many of the white leftist commentators are sending this message to their audience. Because a lot of times us Black folk on the left are left alone. So she said this here. This is what, so she went ahead and pushed this initiative starting February 1st. We Are Somebody is calling a mass boycott on all Target stores. And she put this here that they're rolling it out. Boycott Target only by minority owned businesses. So she's focused on minority owned. Someone put in the chat, what about the brown business? Yeah, she's focusing on minority owned businesses. And if I remember correctly, I think she added more. Yeah, she posts the names of them here. So this is another step that she took. The following brands are Black and other minority owned companies that we need to support through the boycott. So she listed all the names. So again, this is what I'm saying. Why didn't Al Sharpton do that? Instead of telling everybody, let's just go over to Costco, why didn't he do this? Here's where you can still find these Black owned, and it's not just Target. There are a lot of Black businesses that most people don't know about because they don't receive national recognition. And a lot of times smaller businesses, right? That you just don't know about. And then we have to have that conversation about ownership, right? So shout out to Nina for going that route. Because like I said, Al Sharpton, why didn't you even tell them the businesses that are at Target? There's Tabitha Brown right there. So they can purchase their goods directly from their websites instead of taking them to Target, right? So I feel like as a community, we really gotta, I don't know, man, we gotta do some work. See, you see here, like Chicago French, Penny's Tea, all that kind of stuff. So we have to get organized as a community. And then we got to go back to ownership because I said this. Remember back in the day, I was watching Tupac thing earlier today. Remember back in the day, like, you know, Suge had like Death Row. He owned Death Row. Diddy owns Bad Boy. A lot of times, like when you look at what we own, even in the music industry, while Black artists and producers may own the label, we don't own the company. So those labels still have to answer to Arista or Universal Music Group, Sony. Like we don't. So we have to educate ourselves and work together to have full ownership where we don't just own the label, we own the company, we own the building, we own the property. We own the website platform that it's being distributed on, and it doesn't belong to somebody else, and we got to give them a share. Things like that, right? Now, I say this because the Costco board of directors, this is where he took them to. He said they still keeping DEI intact. Let's see what it looks like, honey. Let's see what it looks like at Costco. Look at the board of directors at Costco. It's the board. Okay. Now, so far, we have one black member. That's Kenneth. Let's continue. Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. So what you have for the board of directors at Costco, you have the one black member, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 white women. Because what have I said over and over again on the show since we started talking about DEI? It mainly benefited white women. That's where Al wanted them to go. So you got to see that. And then I want you to see the other numbers as well. Because look at this. Because you know I had to pull up the data, fam. I had to pull up the data. So let's look at Costco's workforce. All right, because they love diversity, right? Look at the total workforce diversity at Costco. Okay. 45.8%. And who is it for? We can look a little further. You can see it here. There's the numbers for you that I just gave to you. The transparency score. It says there are 11 companies from the consumer staples sector. Among them, Costco ranks 10th. There are 11 companies. Costco ranks 10th for Black African-American diversity. That's the company he took. Nobody did any research. Come on, Al. What is happening here? So there's that. We'll go on. I'm telling you, I'm not joking. I shouldn't laugh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Board member diversity. So you can see this here again, right? So blue is race, ethnicity. Black is gender diversity. And then there's total diversity here, which is orange, right? Notice gender diversity is higher. This is what I was trying to tell you. These positions are mainly going to white women. Their board of directors is 90.9% white. I'm not making up these numbers. Let's go into more. If we talk about the title of Chief Diversity Officer, this is another one I like to point out to people. This is an example, not specifically Costco, but an example of a Chief Diversity Officer. When you look at the statistics, let's go down to the numbers, fam. Bow chicka wow wow. The demographics. The majority of people in the US that have the title Chief Diversity Officer are white. 76.1. This is what I've been telling people. How many black people? 3.8%. That is it. So this is why I continue to say if anybody should be raging right now, it's probably white women. Because you guys about to get hit. Listen to this guy here. He said, when DEI isn't what you thought it was. This is kind of funny.
Okay, so this is hilarious. I just saw this white lady on here complaining that she just lost her job because she was hired under the diversity, equity, and inclusion program at her work. And you can see she didn't want to say it, but she really wanted to be like, but I'm not black. But that's not what diversity, equity, inclusion meant. The number one recipient of DEI hires is white women. The number one people who have benefited the most from this whole affirmative action and DEI hired has been white women, 100%. And now all these white women who voted for Donald Trump are going to find out that DEI included them. And I'm sorry, but this is one of the best fuck around and find out moments yet, because these women are the ones who deserve to be fired. I'm sorry. Like, if you voted for Donald Trump and you get fired because you were a DEI hire, don't come looking to me for sympathy.
So this is the part that a lot of people are just not aware. That's what I keep telling you guys. So Al Sharpton is a useful tool for the establishment. You see, it's Al Sharpton's job is to make the Black community believe that things are better than they are. And if they're not, especially under a Republican administration, see, everybody want to go out to the streets and fight now that Trump's in office. But when shit was happening under Biden and Kamala, people were like, give them a chance. At least it's not Trump. Just give them a chance. Don't like talk back to them. Don't disrespect them. All those types of things. So as a useful tool that Al Sharpton is, he is the one to come out to the Black community and tell you, you know what? Yes, let's do a boycott. Okay, cool. Have no problem with that. Like I said, I participated in boycotts before. But instead of redirecting that energy into something that is going to help the Black community, that mofo redirects you to Costco. He's taking you from one white-owned business to another one. And I'm sitting back there and I'm saying to myself, like, nobody else sees this? Like, but apparently people did, because like there was a lot of backlash online. Like, people were not having that, okay? Nina did it the right way. Nina Turner said, okay, let's redirect people to these Black-owned businesses. Do you see the difference between the thinking? She knew immediately what to do. But Al Sharpton's role is to just take you from one form of corporatism to another form of corporatism. Instead of taking you to the smaller Black-owned businesses that are on the shelves at Target or any other smaller Black-owned business, he takes you back to another big corporate entity that's got one Black dude named Kenneth on the board. This is why you need independent media, because a lot of people aren't going to say it the way that we say it. And now all these people who were praising him on corporate media, I'm like, praising him for what? And I understand people need things like paper towels and all that kind of stuff. You can buy those things online. And as a community, I really do think we do need to get together and have a conversation and an action towards not just owning a product, but owning the property, owning the land, owning the platform that is distributing the product. We have to talk about having all of that so that a portion is still not going to someone else. Target is showing you they can get rid of they can get rid of these people at any time. They can stop selling your product at any time, fam. Target doesn't have to keep your product on their shelves. If they decide, yeah, you know, we want to put space for something else, they can kick you to the curb. So in the end, we can't really rely on Target or Costco. Something to think about. The comments are hilarious. Let's get to some of the comments here. Thank you. Okay. Robert, never depend on corporations for your justice. Itole said, Target was the bougie pronunciation because it was fancier than Walmart. I know. We really thought we were doing something like in college. We're like, no, we're not going to Walmart. We're going to Target. Leroy said, ugh, brother, ugh, I can't stand these capitalists. They're capitalists first, Black second. Thank you, Courtney. If Costco drops DEI, which they probably will, Al Sharpton will be the one to thank. In chat, Sabby, that is the problem. Black folks are always looking out for themselves as individuals. We don't stick together. That is why these other groups take advantage of us. That is a good point in chat. Yeah, conversations need to be had. Chris says, Sabby's example is perfect. LOL. It's basically, yeah, I support you, but hold on a sec. Eats pancakes. It's just words, no action. Right? Thank you for the super sticker, Money Making Bear. Thank you, Eskimo Black. According to 2023 Black Enterprise Magazine / online Black people only made up 4% of DEI hires in the workplace. Oh, man. Thank you, Roger. Black misleadership class, literally misleading. FM says white, I think this is white women, should be raging because loss of DEI. Should be. Thanks, Courtney. Both Target and Costco are owned by Vanguard. So Al is basically taking money from Vanguard just to give it back to Vanguard. Damn. Courtney comes in with the uppercut. Courtney jumps off the rope. Tag team. Thank you, Michael. Hi, Sabby. Toon. Hello. Hello, Michael. Okay, I think we have a comment on Rumble. Yeah. Thank you for the comment, Snorky. Very few of our Black students are from the USA at my school. Most of our Black students are actually from Africa or Haiti. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that a lot at BU and Harvard and MIT. Damn. But all those schools that I worked at, I saw that as well. I do want to share this one because I do want to share a solution. And I think this was a great post here from Dear Freedman Nation. Dear Freed Women, I've been listening in these X spaces on how hard it's been to get into beauty supply business. We are excited to announce that with the launch of the Freedman Nation, we will introduce work groups designed to assist those interested in important beauty supply products and starting their own beauty supply stores. A dedicated import administrator will be available to support this initiative. These work groups will be offered free of charge, and Freedman Nation will hold the import license. Our goal is to empower freed women to own beauty supply stores, whether online or in their communities. Stay tuned. More details coming up. Oh, yes. And this is what I'm talking about. See the difference between what they did and what Al did? This is huge because within the Black community, the beauty supply stores are usually not owned by us, right? Even in a Black neighborhood that's like 99% Black, it's usually not owned by us. So this is great. I'm going to share this in the chat, you guys. So you can look at this on your own as well. I think that's a really good idea. A lot of times people just don't have the capital, right? People don't have the money to get started. That's a big part of the problem. So based. Thank you. We have a quick announcement. We cannot forget about Chanda. Chanda, she is a co-host at Beauty and the Boomer. It's her and Oz. For those who are not aware, Chanda is battling lung cancer. And we've been wanting to make sure we continue to shout this out. If you can help Chanda. Again, she's an awesome person. And she's fighting this battle now. Again, Chanda, co-host at Beauty and the Boomer. And I've donated as well. We're all hoping that, you know, she can get the money raised. Right now, it looks like she's raised over $14,000. The goal is $30,000. And she's really trying to kick this, you guys. So if you can help her, Eric, can you put the link to that in the chat to please help out? Oh, you already did. Thank you. To help out Chanda. Again, I think all of us know at least somebody, whether it was been a friend or a family member that has had to battle cancer. And so we know it can be very expensive, regardless if you have health insurance or not. So, thank you for that as well. Thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Uhuru Movement says to buy Black power, not just buy Black. There you go. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And Eric shared that. Thank you so much, Eric. Yeah. So we'll make sure people have access to that. Again, Okay. Yes. Okay. We're going to the final story and then we will do call in after the show. Again, we're talking about useful tools, and there's another useful tool that is coming up. So I don't know if everyone has noticed, but Ro Khanna seems to be on this podcast tour, right? Like he was on with my comrade Nick over at Revolutionary Blackout Network. You'll see a snippet of that as well in the segment. And now he was just recently on Bill Maher with Stephen A. Smith talking about the Democratic Party. And it's very clear to me what Ro Khanna appears to be doing, which I predicted, I think about 2 years ago. It seems that Ro Khanna is trying to set himself up for a presidential run. He's come out very vocally against the strategy that the Democratic Party ran this presidential election cycle. And now he is on the stage with Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith. You guys have got to hear this one. We have a couple of clips here that I think were important. This part here about celebrities and about the primary process within the Democratic Party. Check this out.
It's gonna get me in a little trouble. You know the difference between the Obama and Harris campaigns was? Obama connected with people, and all the celebrities wanted to do concerts because they wanted to be with Obama, because he was with the people. In the Harris campaign, they went after the celebrities to do the concerts to get the people. They got it backwards.
I'm just saying, I don't know about that. Okay, let's be.
So did everybody see what Ro Khanna just did there? Ro Khanna criticized Barack Obama. You see, it's a little bit more acceptable to do so now. I remember Tavis Smiley and Cornel West were kind of blackballed after they criticized Barack Obama years ago. Apparently, they were ahead of their time. This is how, I think he's going to pursue a presidential run, because he's taken shots at Barack Obama. He was supporting the ad that had John Fetterman in it for new leadership for the Democratic Party. He supported that publicly. And he's also saying here, he said, well, Obama, connected with the people and then the celebrities kind of followed, whereas Kamala Harris started off with the celebrities and was hoping that the people would follow. So that is a good point there that Ro Khanna made. But the Obama era is also over. And I think Ro Khanna realizes that. So it's interesting. And now you're going to listen to what Stephen A. Smith says in response to that. That is true, though. I told you when I made the video of 10 reasons why Kamala lost, that was one of the reasons I gave, is that it was too many celebrities and all that. And it felt like you were just trying too hard to sell something to people. And working class people don't really care how many celebrities you hang out with as your buddies. If anything, that could actually be a turnoff to some of us, right? So listen to what Stephen A. Smith says. This is interesting.
Honest here. First of all, one could argue that Obama resonated more because the people chose him to be the Democratic nominee for the presidency of the United States of America, as opposed to somebody backdooring their way into that position. Let's just be honest about it.
So does everybody see what Stephen A. Smith just did? He calls out the fact that the Democratic Party didn't have a primary process, which many of us were talking about that before Kamala was even announced as the nominee. We were like, nope, they need to have a primary or something. And there were primary candidates that were running against him. It's just that the DNC refused to acknowledge it. So we did talk about that. But what Stephen A. Smith is doing, and I want people to really pay attention here when we talk about useful tools, because Stephen A. Smith is also a useful tool that's being used not just by the establishment, but also by corporate media. Stephen A. Smith represents someone who's not a politician. They're a sports commentator who, more so started talking about politics about a year ago, but is a sports commentator. So he is someone that they are using because he's outside of the political sphere, but he still sides with capitalism and the establishment. And when you still side with capitalism and the establishment, the corporate media is going to eat you up. They're going to love to use you as their tool to convince people to find ways to still stay among the duopoly. This is why they're carting him around and not other people that are more anti-establishment. You don't see them bringing on anti-establishment voices, right? So I want you to pay attention to something like that. I don't even think Mark Lamont Hill, I have to ask him, I don't think Mark Lamont Hill has been on there. Mark Lamont Hill's pretty anti-establishment and also anti-war. They kind of keep those people, they try to keep them kind of hidden, right? So just pay attention to what's happening here.
Biden, I know that you supported Biden. Obviously, you spoke about his mental acuity and all of that other stuff, but we all saw what we saw. Before the debate on June 27th, when the debate happened, and by the time that was exposed, you then waited 3 weeks after that before he decided to walk away, but it was too late for anybody else to get in. So Kamala Harris, who didn't resonate during the primaries in 2020, couldn't even get to Iowa, suddenly is the Democratic nominee. And then you roll up at the convention in Chicago, and everybody's like, she's a rock star.
So here's another thing. He's correct about them not having the primary, and all of a sudden there was all this hype around her and people were just supposed to believe that that was the corporate media and PR trying to do their job of selling a presidential candidate, right? But at the same time, don't forget, Stephen A. Smith did vote for Kamala Harris. He did support her. He did criticize the Democratic Party in the way that they were moving, and he was actually pushing for someone like a Gavin Newsom earlier on. But another thing that I've noticed as well is that you have to wonder if things would have turned out differently. He did vote for Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris would have won, which I don't think would have happened, but let's say hypothetically she did win, would Stephen A. Smith be sitting on Bill Maher bashing the Democratic Party and talking about what they need to fix? Or would he be on the Kamala train? I would argue instead of bashing the Democratic Party, he would be bashing Donald Trump. I feel like he's just kind of going with where the money is right now. He's the useful tool to be contrarian. He goes on to these shows to be contrarian against the Democratic Party, and he'll say little tidbits about the Republican Party, but it's more positive than it is negative. If it were the other way around and Kamala did win, Stephen A. Smith on Bill Maher right now would be attacking Donald Trump, not the Democratic Party. He would be attacking the Republicans, not the Democratic Party. These are just different ways that people are used within this space. And who are they trying to fool? Let's continue.
It was like, wait a minute, how that happen? How that happen? I don't know how that happened. So you're looking at all of those things and you're saying, yes, I voted for her. A lot of people voted for her. But in the end, we end up feeling like damn fools because we supported it. We fell for the okie doke, as they say. You know she did. If you had a primary, the likelihood is that she would not have been the Democratic nominee.
That part is most likely true. She most likely would not have been the Democrat nominee. But when Stephen A. says that they were fooled, they were tricked and fooled, he wasn't tricked and fooled because he just told you that he knew she didn't have that popularity, but that's what they were trying to sell to the people. So he wasn't tricked and fooled. Wait till we get to the other one.
And you can't say that about Trump in this side. You can't. That's water.
So do you see what he said at the end? He said, and you can't say that about Donald Trump. So what they're doing here is Stephen A. Smith is going to be, and you got to be I mean, Stephen A. Smith isn't stupid. He knows this. But to anybody like just starting out, I'll give you this warning. You have to be careful about people will try to use you and move you around within the media space. Pay attention to certain things. If people only bring you on to talk about how bad one side is, but not the other side, they're using you for that narrative. And they're less likely to bring on someone that's going to call out both sides, right? I was actually surprised when I used to go into Rising. This is back when Bree was still co-hosting. When I went into Rising, I was surprised I was allowed to go on there and say, you need to leave both parties. I was surprised. And they still brought me back on. So I was kind of surprised by that. But in these types of spaces like Bill Maher, The View, even the PBD podcast. Look at where Stephen A. Smith is going. Look at where the space is where he's moving to, right? They're typically the spaces that tend to be more accepting of the Democrats fucked everything up and they're terrible, whatever. And most of his rhetoric towards Trump has been positive, even if he doesn't agree with the policies, which from what I've heard, he pretty much doesn't. So he's being used as a useful tool to portray a certain narrative. Then we want to get to this part here when he talks about the promises that are made. Listen to this.
So when he shows up week 1 on Capitol Hill and he says, this is what we're going to do through an executive order, even though it's going to be shot down through the courts and what have you, he's saying, I kept my promise. A lot of other things that he's going to point to that he's going to try to do, I kept my promise. Then you turn around and you look at the left and you say, what promises did you keep? Now, you might know the answer to that. I'm certainly not questioning your knowledge about that at all. What I'm saying is what resonated with the voter. What voter out there can look at the Democratic Party at this moment in time and say, there's a voice for us, somebody that speaks for us.
The people who are establishment, the people who will say that it's a voice for us are people who are fine with the establishment, people who may be a little bit more moderate. They may be fine with the Democratic Party. I mean, everybody is not like me. Everybody's not like me. Everybody's not like, you know, my comrade JB in the chat. Everybody's not. In fact, most voters are not like us. Most voters vote for the establishment. So I don't know, man. These are certain things I'm noticing here with this conversation and what's happening here. And I feel like Ro Khanna, again, he's trying to pave a way for his own presidential campaign. I believe that's really what this is all about. So he goes there. And by the way, Ro Khanna shouted this out and he said, Democrats on Twitter, he said, Democrats need to pay more attention to Stephen A. Smith and they need to hear from him and invite him on. So they continue to push someone who, again, is not a politician, technically not a political commentator, a sports commentator, because it gives the impression that this is an outside voice. This is an outsider, when in the reality, you have to realize that Stephen A. Smith is establishment. Stephen A. Smith supports the establishment. He supports capitalism. He's vocal about this. I mean, it's not like I'm telling you a secret. But again, when we look at the same perception they're trying to give you of John Fetterman, be very careful with the perception that they're trying to give you of Stephen A. Smith. I have watched him do this thing when I watched him on ESPN. Like, I guess I do watch sports commentary. I've watched him do this thing where he kind of bounces around between like, what's going to be more acceptable with the establishment. A number of times when they're talking about different athletes on ESPN and it's a black athlete that did something wrong versus a white athlete that did something wrong, I noticed that Stephen A. Smith tends to be a little bit more harsher on the black athlete than he is on the white ones. I still remember the way that he talked down about Colin Kaepernick, but you can give Dana White a pass. A useful tool for the establishment.
Goes up on Capitol Hill and fights the fights that we want them fighting on our behalf. They didn't do that. And that's why their behinds are home and that man is back into the White House and they want to sit up there and talk. You look at the networks right now, they're talking about him. Look at it. This is the latest. Look at him. Here he goes again. Well, you know what here he goes again means? He's doing what he said he was going to do.
Now, again, he's correct. He's not saying things that are incorrect. He's correct. Trump is doing what he said he was going to do. But Stephen A. is still keeping you within the establishment. I believe there's one more here. Oh no, those are the two that I wanted to share. I wanted to make sure I'm not sharing the same one. But what you can see here is the comments. That's what I wanted to show you because this was shared by Case Study QB. Sir Raphael said, what? The audience is being trained seals and clapping at every little thing, but things that are factual true. Timothy said, I do wish Roe had come out against Biden like Dean Phillips did, but at least he is being a truth teller here. And someone said, Bill is an asshole. Okay, so Listen to what Ro Khanna said to my comrade Nick on RBN at the end of their interview. So I'm trying to tell you guys what the game that's being played here. Listen to this.
Question here. Why do you think the Democrats lost the last election?
Because we've lost the trust of a lot of people who are economically struggling and have been for the last 30, 40 years and see their quality of life and their stability declining. They see $12 trillion in my district in Silicon Valley, and they see the Democratic Party having been part of ratifying NAFTA that led to the offshoring of jobs. They see the Democratic Party having allowed deregulation that led to stock buybacks and all of the money going to the capital class. And basically they see places deindustrialized, towns hollowed out. First, it happened in Black America, and William Julius Wilson wrote about it. Now it's happening in white rural America and white factory towns. A lot of the country doesn't have high-paying jobs. They may have jobs, unemployment may be down, but those jobs aren't the same secure jobs, the same high-paying jobs as in the past. We've deindustrialized. We've lost so much of our manufacturing capacity, and the cost of childcare have skyrocketed, healthcare have skyrocketed, education have skyrocketed, and people are crying out saying, this is not working. And then we have basically, we're defending institutions and saying everything is working. And that, I think, was just out of touch.
Okay, pay attention, folks. Now, the things that Ro Khanna said there are true, but Ro Khanna didn't mention these things when Kamala Harris was still in the presidential race. He was backing her and supporting her. Before Kamala was the nominee, he was still backing and supporting Joe Biden. In fact, he voted along with Joe Biden 99% of the time. So he told you everything that he knows is wrong, yet he voted for some of these things. And now that the Democrats have lost, now this was Ro Khanna. He was coming on the RBN, and I really think his goal here was try to not just convince Nick, which that wasn't going to happen, but I think he was trying to convince Nick, but also trying to convince the audience, which is very much activist based, convince the audience to give the Democrats one more chance, to give them another chance, not just to give the party another chance, but to give him another chance. Give him a chance, because I think this is him prepping for his presidential run. So you have Stephen A. Smith, that's a useful tool, and you have Ro Khanna, that's also a useful tool. Because what Ro Khanna does, he has found a way to maintain a place in the congressional spaces in DC with Dem leaders like Hakeem Jeffries, and also in left independent media, which is to the left of even him in some cases, but obviously to the left of corporate media. He's also able to appear on CNN and Fox News, but he's also willing to come on to left independent media on YouTube. The Democratic Party, I think, uses someone like Ro Khanna as a useful tool because he's able to cross over to different spaces and seem to do so effortlessly. He was on Bill Maher, very relaxed and fine. Not the first time he's been on Bill Maher. He went on to RBN to battle with Nick, and Nick came out strong, swinging. And Ro Khanna, very calm and chill and all that jazz. He was calm and chill when he was on my show, so pay attention to the tools that are being used in front of you, because these are the same tools that they'll probably use again come the next presidential election. Stephen A. Smith is a useful tool by corporate media that is being used to go into all these different shows to convince you guys that he has a great insight in the political space, which I agree with. Some of the things he says I think are 100% true, but they could be pushing him to run for something. Look at this outsider we have over here. He was a sports commentator. He was not a politician. He doesn't know a lot in the political world, but he has great insights. Why don't you run for office? I can see it now. And of course, Ro Khanna. I noticed Pramila Jayapal was also on Majority Report recently. So everybody see what's happening? Let's make sure we're focused and alert, and we are aware of these tools that are being used in front of us, so that when the next presidential election arrives, we'll be ready. What's the movie where they say that? And this is the movie he said, oh, Home Alone. When those guys come back, I'll be ready. I love Home Alone. Let's get that poll. Macaulay Culkin, I love it. Okay. The poll, should Fetterman run for president? We have 1,385 votes. Yes, he could win working class. That's 4%. No, he has too much baggage. That's 71%. Maybe if he changes, 4%. And 21% said, I have no idea. Well, thank you for being, keeping it real and being honest, folks. We are going to do call in tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back and we'll hop on over to the Zoom chat and we can talk about all of this jazz and
talk about all the things.
That's right.
All right. So this is where we're going to be transitioning. Sabrina takes a little break. Let me little camera just there. Sabrina takes a little break and then we'll be transferring over to Colin. She actually creates the Colin, which is actually a Zoom hangout room. She's actually creating it as we speak here. And then we'll be giving you the link where you can you can hop on into it. We also set up sabbysabs2.com, which will also get you in once it's created. Be patient now, but we're getting there. In the meantime, I'm going to read some super chats and maybe talk about a couple of other things. Let's see what we got for some chats. Thanks for this one, Unemployed Scholar, who says, the Uhuru movement says, I think we might have read that one earlier. Buy back power, not just black, but it's still good chat. All right. Robbie said, Ro is strange. She loves getting cursed out by people. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Ro kind of sees it as his role to kind of get onto these shows and try to sweet talk us into staying on with the Democratic parties. There's this whole narrative where they try to sell you on we just need better Democrats. And I think we're long since reached here at what I call the kind of the real left is that both these parties are really the same because they're serving the same billionaire donor owner class. And yeah, they put on different uniforms, but they're really on the same team. Now that's not to discount the real increased suffering that is happening now under Trump. The trick is the Democrats aren't helping. They're not preventing that. They're actually making this Trump and the next Trump more likely, and we have to break out of that. We have to recognize that uniparty system and break out of it. Moving on. Our 09 Falcon Eye said Rome also did an appearance on PDB, and he wasn't critical of the Dems. He basically coddled them. Yeah, I mean, Ro knows the right things to say, and he knows his role, and he's playing this lane of and hoping he can play it all the way to the White House. I do think he's very ambitious. Thanks for the super chat, Toothpick with a PH, who says he's such a tool. He basically Stephen A. the God. Oh yeah, comparing him to gotcha. And Moon had put in to Sabrina, have you ever been asked to come back on after that? I think referring to The Hill after Brianna Joy Gray left. And we could ask that in the Zoom hangout because I think Sabrina could maybe speak to that one. And what I also wanted to talk about here, there is a new 11 demands thing that's out there. That's a Substack, and I just got a new post out there today. Let's take a quick look at that. So if you go to 11demands.org, you get to the main page, and you get and in there's a quick easy link to the new 11 Demands Substack, and the latest post in there is one that's called "Who Pays." And and this is about taxes. There's been this thing around about Trump floating the idea of getting rid of the individual income tax, and and I even saw some people on the left getting kind of excited at this concept. And there are definitely issues here with the income tax and these kind of taxes. Like this chart, which we start out with, shows you, if you go back to 1960 and you looked at what someone who was in this is rating it as the 400 richest Americans. So basically, that top of the top, and they used to have a pretty high effective tax rate, and over the years, it's gone down and down, especially here in 1980. You see with Reagan coming in, you get a real drop in that rate with huge tax cuts, and these were huge tax cuts to that 0.1% to their income, and you see this decline all through, and of course now it's worse than ever. And if you look at the bottom half of income earners, our effective tax rate has really done nothing but trended upwards with a few blips. So Trump has floated the idea of eliminating these individual income taxes, and this idea avoids one crucial aspect. What's most important when we're talking about taxes isn't the type or the amount of the tax. What's most important is who is paying. Is it targeting the 99% who work for a living, or is it targeting that top 0.1%? Now, in that graph, we saw how that tax burden has shifted from 1960 to 2018, and it's safe to assume that that's continued even more so now. Basically, the rich paying less and less of the tax burden, and the working people paying, the same, and actually getting burdened with more overall, because somebody has to make up the difference. And this also leads us to a key question when we're talking about taxes and all this, and that what are taxes for? Now, there's the common thing of we have taxes to pay for things, but especially at the federal level, that's not actually what taxes are for. The real purpose of taxes is to circulate the money back out of the economy. The Fed and Congress basically creates the money, and you have to circulate it back in. And how these taxes are applied, who is doing the paying, is a key driver of the wealth inequality that we're seeing. And when that tax burden is shifted from the billionaires to the working class, we see the wealth equality increase. And this is exactly what we've been seeing. We've been seeing it on steroids. Now, I also link on this post to a discussion about taxes and taxpayer dollars. And if you get into the Substack post, I encourage you to get into it. Go to 11demands.org, and you can click through to that. And there's some interesting things about why you should just not even use the phrase taxpayer dollars. But then, excuse me. So what do we do about it? What the 11 Demands and the 11 Demand strategy is proposing is that we think bigger. Rather than being distracted by this latest partisan theater over this tax or that tax, we should be demanding real radical changes in the tax systems, changes that would transform it from a driver of wealth inequality, which is what it is now, into a tool instead for fixing it. So then if you look at from the 11 Demands list itself, number 10, revamp taxation and funding. You could and should abolish all taxes except for a highly progressive income tax, wealth taxes, and taxes on large corporations. This would be that transformation of the tax system from creating wealth inequality, and would flip it into something that fixes wealth inequality. We should use the tax system as a tool to address wealth inequality. We would, of course, have to eliminate tax loopholes. You need to prosecute and potentially expel persons and corporations that abuse offshore tax havens. We should be chartering a network of state-level public banks to benefit local communities and businesses. And in general, we should be issuing that federal currency, the federal dollars, to promote the public good and not to increase public profits. So in closing, we say it doesn't have to be this way, and real change starts with real demands. And if you want to see some real demands, go to, let me back up into this thing. Go to 11demands.org. There we are. And you can see, what the demands look like. If you're asking, how do we do this? How can this is even possible? There's an 11 demand strategy in there, and lots of info. So please check it out. Please subscribe to the Substack. And if you have any questions about it, you can ask about it on Zoom. Let me clear this out.
All right.
To now.
That's right. We're going to get into the call in. So the link to join to call in is pinned at the top of the live chat there. I'm going to go ahead and open it on the show. I always do that just to make sure that everybody can get in, fam. And I just ask that when you join, if you mute yourself, you can also get that link and the passcode on sabbysabs2.com if you join the live stream after, because YouTube doesn't show the live chat immediately right after the stream. So if you go to sabbysabs2.com, you can find it there. And that passcode, well, people are already joining, so they don't need the passcode. Looks like people are already getting in. So that's good. And we'll continue the discussion over there, fam. So I'll see you guys there.
See you in there.
All right. sabbysabs2.com. Have a good night and keep up the fight.